Welcome to the David Bradley Show with your host, David Bradley.
Howdy, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Y'all stay tuned because we're going to have a real good guest today. We're going to learn some stuff about some horror indie movies and what all it takes. So, everybody, please welcome Aaron Mirtes. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm just sitting there playing around, I guess.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I was glad you came in. A lot of people was telling me about you're the dude for the horror movies, man.
At least in Nashville, I'm one of the guys. That's for sure.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's funny. There isn't much of a horror community here, but that's kind of why I like it, because I can be left alone to do my thing without getting bothered.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the community is all over the place, and it's fun to connect with them, and it's fun to collaborate with them and travel to them. But it's nice to be the only guy in the city, more or less, doing these kinds of movies, because then there's no precedent, no reputation. You can go into a location and be like, oh, I make movies, and that doesn't intimidate them because they have no idea. They've never met anybody that makes movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's a lot of Etsy shops and stuff, that carry all the oddities and stuff. So, I mean, it looks like getting props and everything would be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what I do is the Etsy stuff. But yeah, so I'm definitely one of the. There are a lot of filmmakers in the community, but I'm really one of the only horror-focused, genre-focused filmmakers in the area that I know.
And so, do you get that started at a young age, or?
I fell into it because I started making movies at a young age.
Well, I noticed you like 8 years old making a movie, man.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, what'd you do? Like Little Dinosaurs, or?
No, so I was always into computers in particular as a little kid, and I was into drawing, and I was into theater, and I was an artsy kid. And, we grew up pretty broke. South Nashville, pretty broke, and my brother. It's a family of 6: mom, dad, and then 4 brothers, or 3 brothers, 4 boys.
Right.
And my older brother, one older than me, I'm the third, is on the autism spectrum. And so, with autism, you crave different types of sensory input. And one of the things he used to love to do is put his eyeball up to things and look at them at odd angles.
Yeah.
And that would satisfy him. And my parents bought him a beta, like prototype digital video camera from the store. And I remember...
Those were high tech in the day.
They were high tech in the day. And I remember seeing them in the store for $100, $150. And so when I was a kid, I was like, already when you're a kid, $100 is a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
But growing up in a house where, I didn't know that we didn't have a lot of money, but we didn't. And so I'm thinking this thing is like really expensive. And he didn't really respond to the camera. And so I remember as a kid being like, this can't go to waste. We have to use it. And so I remember thinking, okay, well, what do people do with cameras? They make movies. And so I liked being able to use the computer and to work with actors and to work with images, and it all just sort of combined everything I was already doing. So, you don't have to start young, and I don't really think I had an advantage starting young, but I fell into it real young.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What was the first movie, man? I mean, yeah, you're talking about it, but you ain't giving me nothing.
Oh, the first movie was I did it was a lot of ripoffs of Disney movies. Like, so because I was 8 years old.
With a small camera.
With a small camera. So I remember I did a ripoff of Freaky Friday. That movie, Jamie Lee Curtis, had just come out, and I had seen it, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so I made a ripoff of Freaky Friday called Corcon's Mask. And it was, you put on the mask and you switch bodies with the last person who had put it on. And so it was the typical, the jock and the nerd switch places.
Oh, sweet.
And so I did a bunch of just stuff like that. And then it was a lot of running around chasing people with video cameras and making up stories and, fake documentaries. And I was really always into the editing softwares. I loved how you could film anything and then edit it into something else.
Yeah.
So lots of rip-off of Disney movies, lots of like funny stuff, but it was never scary stuff. I was always just ripping off what I saw on TV. I didn't get into horror until I was a teenager, because the horror, I was a nervous kid, really nervous, really afraid. I dealt with phobia, still deal with phobia disorder.
Well, did the horror kind of like help that, or kind of calm it down, just the thrill?
Yeah, it's cathartic. There's something about it that I really responded to. So I was terrified of these movies because my grandma was a horror movie nut.
Right.
And she would see all this stuff, and she dragged my mom to see The Exorcist and Jaws in
Yeah.
theaters in a station wagon in the 70s. They put her in the back seat, and they just said, "Don't look."
Yeah.
And of course she looked, scared the shit out of her. And so she's like, my kids are not growing up on these movies. And so in my mind, in my already timid mind, I'm like, these movies are evil. They're not it. And
Well, I mean, when I watched, my parents took me to see Jaws, and I'm like, 6, 7, 8 years old, and it was the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen, especially when the guy went in the shark's mouth and all this stuff. And I was just like, dude, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I really, for about 2.5 weeks, I could not sleep.
my mom too, Jaws and The Exorcist, like really messed her up. And so I was always terrified of these movies. And I remember being a teenager when I got into these movies and thinking, well, I should really probably watch everything. I don't know why I felt the need to watch everything, but I thought if I want to make more movies, I should know what movies look like.
Yeah.
And so I looked up best horror movies of all time, because that was always the red tape on the horror movies. And I saw Psycho was number one. I thought Psycho's black and white. How scary could it be?
Yeah.
And I was wrong. It was really scary. But I felt the rush, the adrenaline. And there was something not only cathartic, but exciting about that. I was always a roller coaster junkie as a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever that is, I want a part of that. And as I've gotten older too, I've learned that is just thrill. It doesn't even have to be horror.
Yeah.
I just love thrill. I just love exciting suspense, twists, turns, stories that take unpredictable turns. But as a teenager, that meant horror movies, and starting my career meant horror movies, and to a degree, still it means horror movies. I still do that kind of stuff. The stuff I've got booked out right now is all action and sci-fi, though. So I'm excited to try and apply some of that to those genres.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's when I was growing up, we had Sir Cecil Creep, and we had Elvira, and all those horror black and white B movies, man.
That was what I started out on.
And you just sat back and just kick out.
You would
eat popcorn and just chill.
There's something so fun about them that I don't think you see in other genres. I always say that horror movies demand your attention. You can't really put them on in the background. It's like it demands to be seen. And I think that's a fun thing. It's not some inconsequential, boozy, loose-goosey, artsy drama. It's like things are happening. People are dying. Monsters are coming. In fact, I just saw Return of the Living Dead not long ago, and I just loved how aggressive, loud, funny, and bizarre it is. It demands your attention. And I think that's something that's really cool.
Yeah, but it's got a cheesy factor to it.
Oh, it does. It's not scary, but it's
a fun, good movie.
It's a fun, good movie, and it still demands your attention in that same way.
It's pretty wild.
It is wild.
So, I mean, you did your first feature at 19.
I did.
What was that?
So I was lucky enough to, like I said, start young, and I made movies all through middle and high school. And in middle and high school, I was lucky enough to work with boards like this one right here doing broadcast work. So I did high school football games, high school volleyball games. I rolled cables, worked with a few local TV people.
Yeah, cable's always fun to roll.
Oh, I know. Figured that out, the over, under. And the test was, in fact, we had a cable rolling test where a professional cable roller came in, which was really just some intern. And the test would be you roll it up and you throw it across the classroom. And did it tangle up? So they're like, none of this. You got to do the over, under. But I was lucky enough to learn from these people how to use the gear at a young age. And so none of the gear intimidated me. And I learned how to work with crews and teams and things like that, because you're doing a high school football game and it's not just you. There are people on cameras that you got to be communicating with through a headset. Sometimes I'm on camera, sometimes I'm in the booth, sometimes I'm on the board. Usually I was on camera communicating with someone on the board. Yeah. But you learn how to talk to a team, you learn how to use the tech. And I remember high school, middle school were tough for me. So I remember thinking that film school was going to be the holy grail. Like, oh my God, it's going to be great. There's going to be a bunch of people that do what I want to do and that understand, the sort of creative nature of this, and they want to make movies like I do. And I found out that was not the case at all. And instead it was the very first night I got there as this film school in Chicago, and someone goes, "You want to go to a party?" And I was like, "I'm not really a party guy, but I'd like to meet some people." So they're like, no, that is a good place to meet people. I go, okay. I walk in, I swear to God, someone's shooting up heroin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I thought this was film school. They're like, it is film school. That's what we do. I'm
Oh,
like,
God.
I'm like, oh shit. And then it just, so the culture of it, I'm like, okay, it's college. People are here to party.
Yeah.
I'm not here to party. I'm here to make movies. And we can party while we make movies, but I want to be making movies.
Right.
I don't want to get distracted. And then I started taking the classes thinking maybe it's going to get better in the classes. And it just bothered me that the teachers were failed filmmakers.
Oh, God.
I'm like, it's not like for example, at Chapman University, right? They've got the guy that runs the film program is a filmmaker. He directed the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick. I would take lessons from a guy like that.
Well, yeah, I loved War Games.
I loved War Games. And he directed Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, hell.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I would take lessons from that guy.
Yeah.
And so when I go into these classes, though, in most other film schools, you're not that lucky. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, I made a short film when I was your age, and now I teach film, and we all watch Citizen Kane, and we talk about why we love it. I'm just like, I am not about this. I'm not about this at all. So
I have never in my life watched Citizen Kane. Never have.
I'm going to give Citizen Kane credit. It's one of the better movies of the black and white movies that are good for you.
Yeah.
Like, I actually enjoyed that one. Casablanca was the one that I didn't get. I'm like, why?
I loved Casablanca.
Look at us.
It was just and it was really more of the ending.
I need to rewatch it now that I'm an adult and I know what love is.
Yeah. I mean, it was the ending for me, I mean, it just, Humphrey Bogart, man.
I need to give it, I will say I need to give it another try, because as a nerdy virgin 16-year-old, it probably didn't hit me in the way that it would as like an adult in a committed relationship. But yeah, so I bailed out of film school because I remember freaking out, calling my parents like, I don't know what to do. I'm not vibing here. I'd rather just go back and work in broadcast, because I know I've got work in broadcast. Mm-hmm. And I know people that work in movies in Nashville, like TV. It was TV and country music videos.
Yeah.
But I thought, country music videos, that's next door to movies, Mm-hmm. And if I had a career making music videos, I am a music obsessive. So I'm like, that wouldn't bother me. Yeah. Like, I know there's money here. I've seen it with my own eyes. There's money in all the gear and the cameras and stuff like that. So I'm going to go back home and pursue it at home. And so I bailed at 19 years old. And a month after dropping out, I was kind of like, what next? And I started thinking about putting together my own business, because I had done wedding videos and corporate videos, like worked on them peripherally as a teenager. Real estate videos, I thought, okay, maybe I can do that.
I'd be bored with real estate videos.
That was they were boring. I only ever did like one or two, and they're boring, but it's fun. It is fun to see houses. I will say that.
Oh, yeah. See somebody else's junk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, this is what's in here.
Okay, she doesn't clean, does she?
Yeah. Oh, that would be so annoying when I would do a real estate video. Like I said, I only did a couple, but I remember one. I walk in the house and it was a shit show, and I'm thinking, are you trying to sell this house or not? Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, I'll go home. I'll do that. So I start doing that, and while I start working on that, I'm like, well, I really want to be making movies. That's the goal here. And I had gone to Walmart and I had seen all these shitty horror movies on DVD. And I thought, I can make a shitty horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's like, it'll be shitty because it's my first movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm 19, but I could do this, right? I can. Yeah, if this is the bar, I can do this.
Because at 19, I mean, you've got a lot of things that you got to work through. Money, equipment, all that stuff.
Family, friends. And also, you're not having the college experience either. You're trying to be social. You're trying to, you're still growing as a person in so many ways.
Yeah, and plus you got a network as far as the business goes.
Yeah. So but there's something about that young, naivete that I just sort of was like, well, I mean, how hard could it be? It turns out very hard, but I was like, how hard could it be? And so initially I wanted to do what the Robert Rodriguez talks about in that Rebel Without a Crew book, where he made El Mariachi in 91 for $7,000. Thought I could make a movie for $7,000. I've made enough short films to know how to make a feature film. Because at that time I had.
Yeah, because there was like, what, 2 or 3 in the Mariachi series?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. He did Mariachi, then he did Desperado, and then Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Yeah.
But so I thought, okay, I can do that. So I started making this movie. I'm thinking I'm going to save up money from doing videos. And then a buddy of mine from high school who was out in LA was like, no, dude, you should come out here and use all the film school's resources to make your movie. And I was like, okay, well, that would be more like $20,000 or $30,000 movie. I don't have $20,000 or $30,000. And he was like, well, if you find a way to raise that money, I'll be here. But I really think you should consider it. And I remember debating, and I'm like, well, this is an opportunity. I should take it. Very bad idea because I was in over my head, but I managed to bug everybody that I had ever worked for in high school. I managed to take the money that I was supposed to be going to college on, and I managed to max out 2 credit cards.
Okay, now you're starting to sound like a musician. Okay.
I know. Well, starting out, I felt like one, and so I went out to LA, and it took me 3 years to make my first movie because I had no idea what I was doing. B, I was growing as a person. I was still a nervous adult.
Yeah.
And so, and then C, I'm trying to make money at wedding videos, corporate videos, music videos, stuff like that. And then our shoot in LA went totally wrong. So we got like 2/3 of the movie shot, and then wildfire hit our final location on our way to it.
Oh, great.
Yeah, in a national park or whatever. We were supposed to shoot in some park that had a fire. I had obligations in Nashville. I was like, screw it, I'm going home. Edited the movie, had an hour of it, made a trailer for it. I tried 2 Kickstarter campaigns, both failed. Ran up another credit card, which I don't advise. Like, for the love of all things good, make your movie for $7,000. Like, just, you don't need to be spending $30,000.
So this process has kind of like taught you how to network and get the money and all that?
I dropped out of film school only to put myself through film school.
Yeah.
It took me 3 years to make the movie, and I spent a semester at film school. So it was 3.5 years of just learning and doing wedding videos, music videos, and comedy sketches and short films and writing and just sort of learning how to do it.
Yeah.
And one thing that always captivated me was guys who could do it all themselves. And because they weren't beholden to big money, and they weren't beholden to anyone that could tell them, what to do or what not to do. It's like, okay, well, if I raise $30,000 once, I can raise $30,000 again.
Yeah.
Granted, without the money I was going to college on and without my credit cards, okay,
it'd be no movie.
Well, it'd be a couple $1,000s. So it's like I could do that, and so that was what I was thinking. It's like I could do that.
Yeah.
That was sort of how that went. And then, sure enough, we finished the movie. We released a trailer to try and raise more money in the middle of the process, and that trailer caught the eye of a distribution company, a sales agency, actually. And a sales agency calls, and they say, we want to sell your movie and take 30% and give you 70%, and that way you don't have to do the selling. And I was like, great, I know nothing about selling, and they sold me on it or whatever, and it was a good idea ultimately because they have connections that I don't. There's still... I've been to the film markets, and still I don't have the connections that a sales agent has. They're still worth it if you can negotiate a good percentage. But
yeah, because I've noticed a lot of the movies that people are doing.
Yeah,
some of them don't really do good here.
Oh, but they do great
in the American market. But man, you take them overseas. So if you've got a good agent, good sales rep, and all that, I mean, they could sell the crap out of it overseas.
Yes, they can. And I have several movies like that made no money here, but did great overseas. It's like most of my movies. So that sales agency then came to me and said, hey, we're in the middle of doing domestic distribution. We're trying to convert into doing domestic distribution and international sales. We want you to be our first title if you're interested in selling it to us.
Lucky break.
Lucky break. And so I was like, yeah, I'll sell it to you. So they paid me $15,000 up front for it.
Sweet.
And everybody that gave me money on that movie was wonderful. They were like, no, we're investing in you. And thank goodness I didn't have to pay any of them back. So I took that $15,000 and burned it in about 6 months.
Only thing I need is 70,000 so I can, just do this full time.
Yeah. See, I thought I got that check and I was like, oh, I'm a full-time filmmaker now. So I moved out of my parents' house and I got an apartment and I was living frugally. But even then, if you're living frugally, that's going to last you it's going to last you like 8-9 months. Anyway, I saw the writing on the walls and bailed after 6 months and tried to save what I could because I still had maxed out credit cards that I was trying to pay down from the movie.
So what was the name of the movie?
Clowntergeist.
Clowntergeist?
And that has a story in and of itself.
Dude, that sounds... Hang on, I got to find that on here. Where is this?
It was on the first page, actually.
On the first page?
Yep. That movie,
oh, yeah, I was looking at that.
So it's crazy how that went. So it's like I made a clown movie because I love... clowns. I just as a fan of horror, I was like, there are not enough clown movies, and I want to do one. And
yeah, like everybody is not scared of a clown. Okay.
Right, exactly. Well, and at the time, there wasn't even it. Like,
yeah,
there was the miniseries with Tim Curry, but that was the '90s. I'm like, okay, there's room for this in the market.
Oh man, you had to say Tim Curry, didn't you?
Yeah.
Dude, I love him.
Are you a mega fan?
I am a mega fan of
Are you
Tim
a
Curry.
Rocky Horror guy?
Yes.
I want to see that. I want to go to one of those screenings. I've never done that.
They don't do it as much as what they used to.
Yeah.
I mean, used to, when you went, man, we we get half wasted.
Sure.
And we would go out to wherever they were playing it. And it was always around midnight,
Yep.
you know? And people were dressing up. You got the characters that are on the screen. They're in the freaking audience, man.
So
It's crazy.
There's a movie called The Room. I'm sure you've heard, best worst movie ever made.
Yeah.
And they do screenings for that, and it's the same deal where everyone gets dressed up. And those I've been to, where you dress up and you scream at the movie and you recite the lines and you yell at the characters. And so I haven't done that for Rocky Horror yet, but I would love to.
It's
Especially
wild.
back in, like, you got to go back in the day when it was like a thing. Now it's a tradition, but like back in the day, it must have just been like,
Oh, dude, it was like every song that came out, you know, the whole audience. You got like 100 people in this, you know, theater.
yeah.
Everybody singing the Time Warp and all these other songs. And
Sure.
it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And then Meatloaf busting through and setting his songs.
Forgot that Meatloaf is in that movie.
Oh, yeah, that was his first freaking movie, man.
Damn.
That's where he got his big break before, you know, Meatloaf, the band, had ever been put together.
Had Bat Out of Hell been put out at that point?
No.
Wow.
This was like, I think, 2-3 years before it came out.
Man. Good for Meatloaf. Rest in peace.
Yeah, dude, he was awesome.
Oh yeah, he was a major talent. But anyway, so it's funny how Clowntergeist got named Clowntergeist. So I'm thinking, okay, there's room in the market. It with Tim Curry had been it, but there's room in the market. I love clowns. I love horror movies. I want to do it. Yeah. And I had done a short film as a teenager based on an urban legend about clowns called The Clown Statue. So I thought, and it got, 400,000 views on YouTube or something like that.
Oh, dude.
I ended up deleting the video. I don't know why, but
you should have left it.
I should have. I don't know why. It was some probably nervous episode where I'm like, oh, I don't want my old work.
Put it on there.
Yeah. Well, now there's a re-upload out there still. So people, if you look up Clown Statue, Aaron Mirtes, it's still there. But it had done well, so I thought, okay, people want this. And I made the movie, and I called it Fear Itself, like the FDR speech.
Okay.
To fear, but fear itself. And the company picked it up. I was young, naive, and they said, write a list of titles that start with A, B, or C. So when people pull up the movie on demand or on streaming or rental,
it'd be right there at the top.
It'd be right there. So A, B, or C. So I'd come up with like 30 titles, Abomination and, Bastard Clown and crazy shit. And they were funny guys, and I got along with them. So I thought I'd put just some joke titles at the bottom. So I said Star Wars Episode 8, The Clown Awakens. And then I put Clowntergeist, which was like poltergeist and clown. And I get a call. I would never forget it because it defined that movie. And he was like, hear me out. I think we should call it Clowntergeist. I was like, why? That was a joke.
Yeah, but it's actually a pretty cool name.
And he's like, it's going to catch people's eye. And he was 100% right. We got in the Hollywood Reporter because we had a company do a press release. And the Hollywood Reporter picked it up. Entertainment Weekly picked it up. It was all over Twitter. And so it was like 30% viral. There were people talking about it in publications. There were people sharing the trailer. Now, the movie did not fit the title at all, and the movie was made by a 19-year-old. So, unsurprisingly, when it came out, everyone's like, what the hell? What is this? And I was like, my best effort. That's what it is.
At this age, at this time, this is it.
There's still some cool shit in that movie. Like, there's plenty of stuff in it I'm proud of. But yeah, but it ultimately launched my career. And it's funny, I had that stroke of luck, and then like any stroke of luck, I went back to square one.
Oh, you get a dry spell.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to work on a movie, and the studio that bought up Clowntergeist was like, well, we could give you $20,000 to make a mockbuster, which is where you take a popular movie and make something similar. And so they're like, is there anything coming up that you want to rip off? And I was like, well, there's a Nun movie coming up based on The Conjuring 2. They're doing The Nun.
Yeah.
So let's do a Nun movie. And I'm like, great. And they gave me some parameters. It has to be set here, and it has to have a Ouija board, and it has to yada, yada, yada. They gave me $20,000, and not knowing any better, I just spent all the money on the movie. I didn't pay myself because I was back at home, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make royalties on this because Clowntergeist was big, and it's going to make me royalties. And
a little bit of a cockiness there.
Not even cockiness. Just I think I just didn't understand how it worked.
Yeah.
Because I knew that Clowntergeist wasn't great. And I knew that this nun movie would be better, but I've never been deluded on like the quality of my movies. I'm very aware. I get better every time. The goal is to get better every time. But so it wasn't so much ego as much as it was like, oh yeah, this is how it works. You know, they'll take care of me. The industry will take care of me, that's the naiveness, or the naivete. And so I make this movie, and the movie actually ended up doing pretty well internationally. And back then, you would get a percentage of the movie because you made it.
Right.
They would finance it, and they say, we put up the risk, so we'll take the majority of it, but you'll still get like 30 or 40% because you made it. That is not how it works anymore. Now you get 0% or whatever, but you leverage that and you say, okay, well then I get to pay myself a bunch up front. I want a bigger budget. Or you could say, I will take a smaller budget in exchange for points on the back end.
Right. Yeah, because nowadays, I mean, isn't it more like you've got to actually get the money, make the movie, get everything done to where it's a complete package before anybody really will look at you, right?
That's one option. I did that with my movie Painted in Blood, and I did that with Clownergeist, but everything else has been financed by. So I've directed 8 movies, and then I'm currently contracted to direct 3 more this year.
Sweet.
And all of them but 2 were financed by one of these distribution companies. And you know, if you help them make money, they will love you. You know,
oh, yeah.
They need an asset. They need a movie that will sell. And if you learn how these movies sell, the parameters, the guidelines aren't that strict. You know, it's like it has to have a nun and it has to have a Ouija board. Other than that, and it can't have sex or nudity, or it can't have, you know, there's certain appropriateness guidelines.
Right.
And then within that, you can do whatever you want. And my buddy Charlie and I, Charlie Steeds is another great horror filmmaker. We were talking, and I think at the beginning of our careers, we used those guidelines as an excuse to not push ourselves. Oh, well, the studio doesn't want us doing this. We can't make anything crazy. We can't make anything cool. We're just trying our best. Nowadays, we're really trying to push ourselves and push on those boundaries that they give us.
Yeah.
And the imaginary ones. Like, you know, with Curse of the Nun, it had to take place inside of a house. He said it has to take place inside of a house, the whole thing.
So y'all rent a house, or what do you?
Well, I could have pushed back on that. That's the kind of thing that you can push back on. Like, hey, what would you think about it taking place in a small chapel?
Yeah.
Because that fits the nun thing better. And they would have said yes. A lot of the guidelines are arbitrary. So finding where to push, finding which hills to die on, while still making the money. I mean, you know, and you'll become a darling child, and you're able to get money from these guys.
It's okay, darling. Come here. Here's some money. Go make a movie.
Go make a movie. It's what it feels like, especially with these European companies that want American filmmakers so badly, because for whatever reason, the independent film scene in Europe is popping. I mean, it's there. It's alive. And I've had a lot of success with some of these European companies. Like I'm doing a movie right after the one I'm doing now, and the company's based out of Malta, which is an island off of Italy. And they make all these money on movies, and they've been financing a bunch of British projects. And
can we get some, like, you know, round trip tickets and hang out?
Go hang out in Malta and go to the
business meeting.
Business meeting. We can write it off. Keep every receipt and write it all off. But yeah, you know, there's all sorts of ways to make it happen. But yeah, so my second movie was financed by the same studio that put out the first one.
Yeah.
And then my third, fourth, and fifth movie were financed by that same studio. And yeah. So it was my first movie was Clownergeist. My second movie was Curse of the Nun. My third movie was called American Hunt, which was the cheapest movie I've done. We made that one for $5,000.
Well, I actually I pulled the trailer up for that, and that was pretty interesting.
That one I'm really proud of, actually. That one, you know, I go back and watch Clownergeist, Curse of the Nun, Alpha Test, Ouija Craft. I kind of like, God, I was learning. I was really trying to find my bearings still. But American Hunt really came out well. I think what a lot of it is about is how hard are you pushing your dollar? You don't want to push it too hard or it'll tear.
Yeah.
And the studio I was working for was all about pushing the dollar as hard as you could. And so I ended up having these movies that felt really cheap. And I felt like the acting and the storytelling were there, but they were ultimately really cheap. And I was sort of constrained by guidelines I'd put on myself that they had maybe implied. So learning how to tell a story with a little bit of money, learning how to stretch your dollar but not tear it. And you know, those were probably the two most important things.
Yeah, because I mean that the Hunt movie, I mean, it just looked like a barn and out in the woods.
Well, and that's all it needed to be, which is why the movie holds up pretty well. You know, it was the cheapest movie I made. We made it for $5,000. We were all done.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. None of us got paid, not even me. And that's how I convinced the actors to do it. Because I would like, look, normally I would never do things for free, but we're going to split all the royalties, because my first 2 movies had made royalties. And to this day, they're the only ones that have given me royalties. Because the contracts have changed so much in these companies, they're going to find a way to keep their money. And can you blame them?
Well, yeah.
And so you just take up as much money from the front as you can. But some companies are better at giving you royalties than others. And, you know, some keep better track of their expenses than others. And that's just trial and error. There are some companies I would trust to give me royalties. And then there's some where I would just say, no, just pay me up front.
Yeah, just get the money and
it's
run.
Like, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just I've seen the organization. And it's just not there, you know, or like I've seen how you guys take care of your receipts. And it's like, I know I'm not going to get paid. So
you on these movies that you did, you directed?
Yeah.
Did you write them?
I wrote, directed, produced, and edited all of them. And then I was behind the camera for 5 of the 8. And I think that's it. And then for some of the movies, I picked the music myself from a music database when I can't afford a composer. These days, I try to afford a composer every time, just because it's always worth it. And I'm such a music nut. But there was a while where those databases did me good.
Oh, I've looked at a bunch of them online, you know, just because I was thinking about doing music here as far as an intro and outro, something like that. But I ended up with what I've got. So everybody kind of digs my granddaughter on there. So, you know, I was
it's cute. I like it.
Yeah, it's cute. It's funny. And, hey, she gets to be a little part of something.
Yeah. No, I think that's great.
But yeah, I was noticing on your stuff, I mean, it's like some of them you've written, directed, some of them you've just produced.
I've helped a lot of filmmakers. Yeah.
Produced. I said produced.
Like
he vegetabilized these. No, I'm just kidding. Produced.
Yeah. I helped a lot of filmmakers. So it's like, that's my IMDb right there that you got on paper. And some of those are short films from before I started. And then I like to help a lot filmmakers. I like to share what I know. And I really believe that we as a group of independent filmmakers are in this together as a community. And so.
Okay. There's one here I got to ask about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
It hit me. And I was just like, I got to know about this one.
Yeah.
Tennessee snow day.
You know, what's funny is I got asked about that 2 days ago. So it was in that 3-year period where I was making Clowntergeist, because obviously I'm not spending every day of those 3 years working on Clowntergeist. I'm trying, but there are a lot of times where I was waiting on an email or waiting on trying to make money. And one day it snowed and we never get snow. And I said, let's make a short film. And the whole premise is going to be, he wakes up, he gets off school, he's excited, he looks out the window, there's snow, and by the time that he gets ready, it will all be melted. Because that's how it works. So he's going to get on his sled.
Yeah, that's it.
He's going to go down the hill, and it's going to be grass. God damn it. And I said, the great thing is, we're going to start shooting, and there's going to be snow. By the time we're done shooting, 6 hours later, the snow will be gone. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So we film him getting out of bed and getting excited and getting ready. And then sure enough, he gets on his sled, he hops in. And deliberately, too, what I did was I shot the scenes where he jumps onto the sled, the snow is still there, and the second he hits the ground, it's gone.
Just a stop.
Well, the snow's gone. It's like a close up where you can't see if there's snow, then it cuts out, it's all gone. So it was a 2-minute short film, and I put it up online. I remember I made it, and then it was like it was a hobby film, and so I just kind of did it in the background, and then I released it a year later on the next time it snowed in Tennessee.
Oh, cool!
Or where there was you know how it is in Tennessee. Yeah. It's like you usually know if there's a big snowstorm coming, otherwise it's a gamble. But there was a big one coming. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to put this out. I put it out, and a bunch of friends liked it, and I actually had a film festival reach out, and they're like, can we show it? I was like, yeah,
sure.
It's like my 1 and 45-second film, but yeah, so that's what that was.
Yeah, I was going through them, and I was just like, man, I just, because I've lived in Tennessee my whole life, I know everything is going on around here, and I was just like,
it's like you get
I gotta know. I gotta know.
It's like you get it. It's that's how it always worked, except for like there may be 3 big snowstorms.
Well, when I was younger, I mean, it was we get 8-9 inches of snow.
Do you remember in like 2002 where we got that crazy 8-9 inch storm that just shut everything down?
Yeah, nobody could drive. Nobody could do nothing.
Yeah, I remember that. But
I'm out there driving a truck through it, so
that's crazy. Does a truck do okay in snow like that, or does it just slide around ruthlessly? Like, does the weight and the size help you, or does it hurt you?
The weight and the size helps to a point, but you got to watch the stopping, because now you've got, say, on an average, 75,000 pounds total load, truck, trailer, fuel. Now you're trying to stop all this on a real slick surface.
Right.
And you got to be careful.
How sensitive is the brakes on a truck? Like, how fast can you stop when it's dry? Because you always hear the hissing and the pistons. And like, can you even stop that fast in a truck?
It really depends on how much weight you have in the trailer.
That makes sense.
I mean, the more weight, more inertia, the more you have to try and brake.
Yeah.
I mean, I've slowed one down. I think I had like 33,000 in the box. Had a car pull out in front of me. He was maybe 1,000 feet ahead of me.
Oh, shoot.
But he was rolling.
Yeah.
So when I hit the brakes, he's pulling out, and instead of just accelerating and going on, he's slow rolling.
Oh my gosh.
And the only thing I can do is kick it out of gear, hit the brakes as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And the point where he pulled out at, I went past it 200 yards.
Gosh.
Just to slow down enough to get behind him.
I always think about that when I see people swerving around trucks. I'm like, be careful, man. They'll eat you up. Not on purpose either. It's like they're trying their best.
Well, I mean, unless you get somebody that's really mad for the day, and he's probably,
he's like, you know what?
He's having fun just running cars off the road.
Jail sounds nice today.
Yeah.
So here's a funny story. My dad is from Norwalk, Ohio, which is a small town right south of Sandusky, which has Cedar Point, the roller coaster park, right by Lake Erie. And it's small, it's quiet. Norovirus, which is the stomach flu, is named after Norwalk, Ohio. That's what it's known for.
Wonderful.
They found the stomach flu there. So what a beautiful thing to be known for. So it's stomach flus and it's truckers, and that's the whole industry there.
Yeah.
And my dad was in high school there in the 70s, and this was like when Convoy was a big hit on the radio. Trucker culture was cool.
Oh, yeah. Burt Reynolds and Snowman and all that. I mean, that's what really got me going and wanting to be a truck driver.
Those Red Sovine songs, you ever hear those? Like Teddy Bear and Phantom 309?
Oh, I used to have cassette tapes, man. I listen to them all the time.
I've got some Red Sovine in my tape collection, but they were trying to encourage the teenagers to become truck drivers, and they thought, how do we do this? So they changed their high school mascot to the Truckers, and it was just a dude in a truck hat, and he'd come out and go or whatever. And I'm like, so my dad's high school mascot was the Truckers.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's, some of us got Raptors, Stallions, Dinosaurs, Bruins. They got truck drivers.
Yeah, Panthers,
but it was the 70s, man. It was a different time.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. But I mean, I didn't start driving until I was God, how old was I? I'm 57 now, and I've been driving 30-something years.
Okay.
And I've got right around 7 million miles. I've seen every state in the continental United States, except I haven't been to Alaska.
Sure.
And I've been to Canada 4 times.
You ever driven to Hawaii?
No, but I would love to try it. There's a lot of Cubans that do that.
What?
They drive right on over to Florida.
They got these weird tireless cars that go on the water.
No, dude, did you see that one? It's this one guy it was a pickup truck, and they set a pickup truck and had 2 pontoons on either side of it.
And they drove it?
They drove it from Cuba to Florida, and the motor, the transmission, the drive shaft came out, and they welded to the drive shaft and put a propeller on the back of it. And they drove it all the way to Florida.
So That's amazing, and that's also a great example of ingenuity and innovation. It's right in front of you. I never would have thought that was possible.
It was a 1940 something model truck.
Wow,
Chevy pickup truck, man.
Drove it right through the water.
I figured Chevy would have picked it up and been like, "Dude, we've got a commercial here."
I know it's like the hot Cheetos thing, where the guy that invented hot Cheetos was just some guy at the Cheeto factory messing around with spices.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, but and they like promoted him and bought his recipe and all that. Same thing. Ford's like, hey, you want to come in and sell us your water car? Man, that's crazy.
I mean, I seen a thing on the news about it, and I was just like, man, that's ingenuity.
That is ingenuity. It makes sense, though.
It worked.
I always think about that. I'm like, man, if I was in Cuba and I wanted to get to Miami or something, I'm like, I'd find a way.
Oh, yeah.
And I love seeing them find a way because, man, water truck would not have been on my list of things to try.
They've done all kinds of stuff.
That's awesome.
And a lot of the stuff they've done, has been kept down.
Sure. They don't. Oh, yeah. They don't want
nobody to see it and get an idea.
I know. So you're on the coast of Miami. Is that a truck?
It's a school bus. Look.
Instead of Jaws, it's trucks.
There you go. Happy trucking water. Dude.
Oh, man.
I done lost my place.
That's all right. What were we talking about?
All the stuff that you did.
Yeah.
The directing, the writing, and you've pretty much done every aspect of it.
Yeah. That was how I made money for a while, just sort of bumming around with independent filmmakers and be like, $100 and I'll come work.
But then I noticed on your website, horror movie poster designer.
Yeah. Posters and trailers. That was my bread and butter. That was what ultimately got me out of my mom's house. Because I moved out like 3 times thinking I'm making money on these movies. I did it, and then I didn't do it. It's like the money's so irregular, especially in the beginning. So I had, been like, I need a way to fill in the gaps financially, right? Because sometimes movies are paying me royalties.
Yeah.
And then most of the time I'm pulling from the budget. I learned eventually to pull from the budget.
Yeah.
And then you have to have enough movies back to back. Like if, like for example, the movie I'm doing now, it is really, I can't say what the budget is for this movie because I'm on contract. So I'll rewind. I don't know if I can. Okay, let's just say a theoretical movie. And let's say this theoretical movie costs $25,000.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, if the movie, and that's on the lower end for sure, $25,000.
Okay.
So we got $25,000, and I say, okay, it's going to take me 3 months to make it. How much money do I need per month? Can I, so I pull that amount from the budget, which ranges between $2,500 and $3,500, just depending on what's going on and depending on if I've gotten any posters or trailers recently. And then you have to have another movie ready to go right when that ends.
Yeah.
And I've just now hit a point where I'm able to do movie. Because I was at that point in about 2019, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then I was not at that point. And then...
Oh, everybody suffered on that.
Yeah. And then 2021, I was on salary with one of the studios, made a movie, and then did a bunch of other stuff for them, writing and things like that. And then just now, for the first time, it's like movie. And I'm booked out for like a year and a half.
Sweet.
Which is great. You just try and get contracts out of these people, and it's like, let's sign a contract. Let me get you on the books. And you do movies for multiple studios, and then you pit them against each other. It's they're like, okay, you want to make a movie. What is it about? You want to make a movie. It's like, okay, whoever pays me more. Or usually what it is who wants me to make the cooler movie.
Right.
It's like, so sometimes you follow your creativity and sometimes you follow the money. It just depends on what's going on in your life. But
so like when okay, like you're talking about, you've got a budget, 25, 30,000.
Yeah. Yep.
That budget really sets
yes
how much you can do,
Absolutely.
how good of a movie you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I learned that. And two, it's interesting that you say how good, because it's,
well, I mean, as far as the all the things that go into
value.
this. Yes.
Yeah. And you're 100% right. And you have to learn how to make a good movie at any budget, because the lower it is, the harder it gets.
Right.
But what I remember being so baffled by, because I had made do you mind if I see that actually? It helps me to see. I've done so many things. And so
You're stealing my notes, man.
I am. So I did Clown and Nun. I was living at home. Hunt, I had started doing trailers by that point.
Yeah.
And so basically what had happened was I did my own trailer for Clown and Nun, And then
Okay.
that studio that I'd made this for was like, these are really good. Our trailer guy is turning things in late. Do you want to do them for $700 a trailer? And I was like,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's $500 a trailer when I started. But it quickly went up to the industry rate, which is anywhere between $750 and $1,250 for a micro budget trailer. These days, I usually charge about $750 for your standard 90-second trailer. For the ones I still do, you know, I don't really do them as much anymore. But it's like I know how to do them, and so it's like if someone comes to me with a cool movie or an easy thing, I'm like, yeah, I'll take $750 and take a day or two and do it if I have the time.
Yeah.
Especially between movies.
Yeah.
But by Hunt, so I made Hunt for $5,000. I didn't pay myself. I didn't pay any of the cast or crew. We all split the royalties that never came in because the contracts had changed. And read your contracts, kids, because they change even when they tell you no, this is the same one.
Oh, it doesn't matter if it's movies, music, anything. You've got to watch.
Number. Yeah, they change one number and your whole financial situation changes. And you just find ways to protect yourself, and you find ways to hoard money. So
Copyright.
Yeah, that too. But I had made this movie, and then I moved on to this movie, The Alpha Test. And The Alpha Test was a robot movie. It was a robot sci-fi movie. And
Kind of like AI.
Yeah. There's a movie called Megan that just came out, which is really good. They did everything that we did in The Alpha Test, but better. I was like, good on you guys. But it was the same premise. It was like they bring home this robot, and it ends up killing everybody in the family because it learns from the humans, and humans are not well behaved. And
Can you say ripoff?
you know what's funny? They ripped us off. This came out 2 years. We made this in 2019. So, and then when I saw Megan coming out, I was like, oh,
I already made that.
I already made that. And I'm not arrogant enough to think they took it from me. I'm like, I'll just chalk it up to great minds think alike.
There you go.
But they did it better than me, so it doesn't
And
matter.
y'all did a great job.
They did a great job. I saw it and I was like, this is what I wished I could have done. But I made that, and that was where I learned about the dollar tearing, right? These first two movies, I'm just finding my feet. I don't know up from down, close up from wide shot. And so it's like I'm just winging it. Because I had short films and I'd learned the grammar, but I'm really learning how to tell a long form story. American Hunt, I made. I had a script that really fit the budget. It was just a bunch of people chasing each other with guns and using stories to make the characters pit against each other, twist and turn, and
make it kind of mesh in together.
Yeah, and it ended up really working. And it was a really hard movie to make. It was hot and sweaty, and we had some.
Well, it looked like in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, it was about 100 degrees. God. So I made Alpha, and that was about a robot, and we had like 25,000, maybe even like 25,000 or so on it. You didn't hear that from me. I remember being like, why isn't this anywhere near as good as American Hunt? Right? We're really struggling here, despite having 5 times the money.
Yeah.
And it was like, we had robots, and we had a big cast, and we had a house, we had a bunch of locations, and that dollar just tore. And all of a sudden everything feels cheap, you know? And then the Ouija Craft ran into the same thing. They wanted magic and special effects. And it was one of the really cheaper movies I'd done.
To me, I think that would be the hardest part is the most expensive part is that special effects and everything.
The most expensive part is whatever you can't do yourself, which is why I do so much of it myself, And so with Painted in Blood, so American Hunt was interesting because between American Hunt, Alpha Test, Ouija Craft, I learned, okay, just because I have a solid script, I have solid actors in all 3 of these movies, right? I'm like, I'm happy with the cast, I'm happy with the script, and I feel like I'm telling a cool story. But in Alpha Test and Ouija Craft, we stretched our dollar too hard and it tore. And I can go back and watch American Hunt and everything stands. And reviews were decent on it as far as reviews for these kind of movies go. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I like the trailer.
Thanks. Yeah, it was received well critically. And so I'm like, okay. And it's one of the movies that I'm still like proud to show people. I'm proud of all my work, obviously, because I put my heart and soul into it. But some movies turn out better than others. And so I'm thinking, okay, when you write, every word you write, I can do that, and here's how I'm going to do it. I can do that, here's how I'm going to do it. And so then I did Painted in Blood. And Painted in Blood, I was kind of struggling with some of the changes in contract and, making money at it. And I thought, I want to break out into other studios and other people. And so I took a credit card.
Here we go again.
Right after I had paid off the Clownergeist ones over a couple years, and I ran it up. I'm still paying it off. I'm close, but I regret doing it, and I don't. but we had $13,000 because I had some money saved as well, so I was able to go over a little over the credit limit, but with cash. But we made the movie for $13,000, and every word I was like, "Here's how we're going to do it, and here's how we're going to tell our story." And I had an art museum that's not far from here, Monhaven. If you just go on Main Street or Gallatin Pike or whatever it's called, it's so funny. It's all the same road, but you just go straight through Hendersonville. There's this 200-year-old Civil War mansion that's been converted into art museum. I taught a summer camp there. My mom works there, and so I was like, I bet you I could talk the owner into letting me shoot there. So we shot there, and then for $1,500 too, I built a replica of one of the galleries. So I'm like, okay, any scene that's messy and bloody, we'll do either in here or in one of the classrooms upstairs where they have paint out and make a mess all the time.
Yeah.
Because the upstairs is classrooms, bottom, is art. And so I knew how I was going to do everything. And I finished Painted in Blood, and I was like, okay, American Hunt was my first like decent movie where things sort of fall into place and you can watch it without hating yourself. And Painted in Blood is my first like, okay, like we can enjoy this. This is a movie, and I can show this to people, and I can not be embarrassed of some of the cracks, that are my fault, some of the post-production cracks. And I also gotten enough practice at just like editing, sound effects, cinematography, directing actors,
That's one of my things that I'm learning now with, especially with the video on YouTube, is the editing part.
Yeah.
And people have told me I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
But I want to learn more. I want a better software. I actually want to go to that. What is that software?
DaVinci Resolve.
DaVinci Resolve. Yeah.
Love. That's what I edit all my movies on now.
Yeah. Well, when I had Omada Films on here, Jason Cunningham, he was telling me about it because I get it because I'll use this Blackmagic Design switcher, and I can get it for free through them.
Yeah, you're right. You can.
So I'm going to get it and start working with it.
Great.
You might be sitting over here in the middle of the night helping me learn this stuff.
There you go. I'm happy to do it. I just made the switch myself, so I just learned everything, and I switched from Premiere. The nice thing about DaVinci is that it's really good at handling information. It doesn't crash. It behaves like an editing software should.
I've been using iMovie.
iMovie's stable and great too. iMovie, it's much more capable than it was 10 years ago.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so learning things like that. And it helped too that I had been editing trailers. I started doing posters during COVID because I thought, I need extra money because everything's going to go to shit for a couple
but I've seen some of the posters. They're like fantastic.
Thanks,
man.
They are a lot of fun. I ended up really enjoying it. I think that's what and too, during lockdown, we all learned something about ourselves. And I learned how rarely is it that you sit down and just learn one thing for a few weeks. And so that's what I did for all of March, April. I just sat down every day and did Photoshop tutorials. And Photoshop is in the same ecosystem as After Effects and Premiere software that I was familiar with. So, and I was always into drawing as a kid. I was never very good, but I understand concepts of like shading and contouring. And so it just translated over, and I ended up having a knack for it. And
I mean, they're awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking the whole time, I'm like, okay, what if I talk to him? Can he take a picture of my face?
Yeah.
Can he make me into a horror poster?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Often, I should do that. I'll make a David Bradley show poster because literally that's what's so cool is in a couple hours, especially when I get a bunch of different clients, right? Sometimes a poster is the most time-consuming, pain in the ass thing because they'll send you a million different assets and they have no idea what they want, and they got a bunch of pictures and they don't know what tone they want, and yada yada yada, and those take forever. And it's worth every penny. And then sometimes people come to me and they're like, just wing it. And I'm like, thank you. And I wing it. And those are always my best ones because I just get to, it's so based on what images you have. You're using Photoshop. So it's like, people will be like, can you make her arm go like this? I'm like, well, did you take a picture of her arm going like this? Like, you're going to get some weird, I'm going to have to take an arm off of some model and tape it to your actor. And the arm's going to look weird. And then I have to blend it and shade it. And then you blend everything so hard that it ended up looking smooth and weird and over processed. And, so it's, but I'll do it because it's like, I'm a good poster editor and I won't complain to their face too much.
Yeah. But see, that's something that I seen on Facebook. There's a company out there. I don't know the name of the company. I'm not plugging them. Okay. I just noticed this. You take a picture and you send it to them.
Yeah.
And they turn you into a member of royalty. And some of them I'm like, dude, you're not royalty. But it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there thinking when we was talking about the movie poster stuff, I'm like, dude, side money, man.
Yeah, it's great side money for now until AI replaces it. Even then, though, it's funny with the AI conversation. I think about some of the dumbass notes I get. And I think about like, you can't even explain to me what you want. How are you going to explain to a computer what you want?
Yeah.
Because so often I'll make exactly what it just people don't actually know what they want. And so they could type it into a computer, the computer get, oh, well, I don't really like that. And I've learned that I had a client say this to me and it made me want to rip my hair out. But he was right. And it's the best advice I'd ever gotten for trailers and posters. He said, your job isn't to do what I want you to do. Your job is to figure out what I actually want and then do that.
Oh God.
And I was like, and it was because it was a client I worked with all the time. And I kept giving him exactly what he wanted. He'd give me specific notes and he's like, no. He's like, I don't know what I want. He's like, this is me and my best guess. Try everything. And then inevitably, if it works, keep it. If it doesn't work, you have to get rid of it. And that it's such a balance. You look at what they want, do what works, and you say, well, I tried this and I tried replacing it with this instead. Oh, that looks so much better because you're the expert, not them. You know, in the same way that if somebody came to me and they're like, you know, how do you want the molding in your bathroom? I'm like, I don't know. I guess here, and cut the corners like this. And I'm like, I don't know. And
well, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. They'll have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And they'll ask you some questions. And then the next thing you know, they've wrote your about you, your bio, everything else. And you're reading it and you're like, holy crap, he made me sound better than what I am.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And so that's, and so when I kind of got over the frustration of it, it ended up being a lot of fun. And so, you know, you definitely look for good clients because there's some clients that just do not know what they want. And this is mainly the case with trailers. Sometimes I'm the first person that has to break it to them that their movie sucks. Because they'll bring me their movie and they'll be like, I want it to be action packed and I want it to be insane and bloody. And I'll be like, cool, man, that sounds great. I'm all in. I'll get the movie and I'll be like, there's not a lot of blood in the movie. There's not a lot of action in the movie. There's not a lot of things. And so I'll turn in a trailer and they'll be like, where's all the blood and action? And I have to very gently be like, what scenes would you like me to put in the trailer that have blood and action? Because I'll put them in, and and they'll realize, oh crap, my movie doesn't have.
It's not in there.
It's not in there. It's like we've been so focused on, you know, and so I'm like, well, you know, let's try reapproaching it, and sometimes the movie isn't even bad. It's just you spend so much time with a movie and you get so intimate with it that you almost forget what it is. It just becomes images and noises and sounds and you have context in your head. And so you're thinking it's going to be scary, it's going to be spooky, but whether or not it actually came out that way. That's why I like to make movies so fast these days. It keeps me from overthinking things.
Well, that's, it's weird because I'll take, like if I do a show and then I'll go into editing. Well, while I'm editing, I'm listening to the whole show, you know?
Yep.
And when I get done, I get it uploaded. I get everything took care of. And somebody asked me, do you listen to your shows? Dude, I did the show. I've edited the show. I've listened to all of it.
Yeah.
I know all of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
It's the same thing.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's a crazy process. There's a meme, and I've experienced this because I've edited. It's so funny. I have to, because in terms of features, I've edited one feature film that wasn't my own for a friend of mine, and then I've edited a bunch of short films for friends. And it's funny when you edit something for somebody else and you'll watch footage of this stranger all day because it's an actor and you don't know them and you've never met them, but you watch the footage before and after the takes. You feel like you get to know them. And so sometimes you'll run into somebody. It's like, oh, dude, so good to see you. You know, remember we did that job together? And they're like, who are you? Like, right. I've just seen a bunch of video footage of you and I've never met you. And I'm like, well, I know a lot about you. You know nothing about me, but I know a lot about you.
I know your mannerisms. I know everything.
I know what you said before take two. Controversial. So it's so funny how that shaped up. But to go back to what you were asking, so I did posters and trailers. I'm still doing them from time to time, but I don't need to. I just kind of do it, you know,
For fun.
For fun or for money. If I'm between movies and it's like I got time where I could be making money right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why not? And then sometimes too, it's just a favor, you know, like sometimes somebody will hit me up and they'll be like, hey man, you did the trailer for my last movie. Will you do this one? And that's flattering. And I'm like, of course, you know.
One thing I always liked was, and this goes way back.
Yeah.
But the movie trailers. And then you'd have the movie posters actually outside the theater on the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, we would sit there and stare at them for like 5-6 minutes looking at every detail, you know, and like the Blob.
Oh my gosh. I just saw the 80s one or the 50s or both.
No, this 50, what was the original one? 50 something?
Yeah. It was 50 something and wasn't it Steve McQueen?
Yeah. Steve McQueen was a young Steve McQueen.
I love the 1950s, The Blob. I love it.
It was cool.
The 1950s version of The Blob, you always hear stereotypes about 1950s horror movies and how cheesy and fun they are. And you'll watch a lot of them and I'm like, this isn't cheesy or fun. This is boring. Yeah. But The Blob pays off. Like it gives you, it's what you want. When you're like, oh, let me see one of those weird old aliens. The Blob pays off. There's also a great movie called Them with an exclamation point about giant ants.
Yep.
That one also pays. I'm like,
it was wild, the noise they made.
Yeah.
You know?
And then they set the ants on fire in the LA sewer system. It's like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah. There was one that stands out, and I seen it. Oh, God, I had to have been 12, 13 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
Green Slime.
I've never heard of green slime.
I can't find it.
Really?
But it was, I mean, I can't remember all of the movie, but it was just like this green slime would come out every now and then, and it would just...
Is it the stuff?
It could be like the stuff.
Yeah.
But this was back in 19... It was colorized, so it was 1970 something.
Right, but was it in color or colorized from black and white?
No, it was in color.
Okay.
And it was called Green Slime.
Interesting.
I'm going to have to look that up.
You know what? I love it when something like, there are a lot of songs like that where I'm like, I loved this song when I was younger and now I just can't find it no matter what I do, no matter who I talk to. There's actually a great video of some like Korean cab driver and he has a song that he had been looking for forever. And he was like, my parents used to play this back home in Korea. And it goes like this, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Do you know what I'm talking about? And he did this to every single person that came in his cab. And someone after like 15 years knew what he was talking about. And he has a video of that moment where like, oh my God, that's the song.
Yep.
That's the song.
Okay. I got it.
Oh, you found it?
I found it.
Beautiful.
I got to take my glasses off so I can read. This is funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you this.
Yes, please do.
The Green Slime was a Japanese movie.
Beautiful. Right.
And it was in 1968.
Okay.
A takusatsu science fiction film directed by Kenji Fukusuki.
Okay.
Or Fukusuki. We're going back to Fukusuki. Okay. Sorry about that, y'all. And produced by Walter Manley. And it was written by William Finger.
Shit, why have I heard William Finger? Maybe it's just a weird name. Hold on, this is called The Green.
But it was a space movie. Check it out.
Oh my gosh. That poster looks familiar. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The posters were so cool back then.
Oh my God.
I don't know if y'all can see that, but...
Kenji Fukusaku. Let's see. Hold on. If you put it on my camera, I've got it right there. Yeah, they can see it.
Oh, hang on. Put it on your camera.
Yeah. Oh. It says the green slime are coming.
Yeah.
There's some laser lady. Oh, the green slime has a hold of her.
Yeah.
It's tentacle. Oh.
Yeah, it's like a octopus type thing.
Yeah.
And
Kenji Fukusaku, he did.
Yeah, edited by Osamu Tanaka. Cinematography.
I'm curious about William Finger. Okay, yeah, he was a comic book artist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
70.
Oh my gosh. William Finger is the co-creator of Batman.
Dude.
That's why I've heard of him.
That is awesome.
It looks like a Japanese-American production company, Toei. Toei made the Godzilla movies.
Yep.
I think they did, or they... Historical drama.
I say, I remember seeing Godzilla, the first ones when they come out.
Toei wasn't Godzilla. Toei was a lot of those old kung fu movies.
Okay.
But anyway, that's so.
Yeah, running time 77 minutes in Japan, 90 minutes United States.
After destroying a huge asteroid that was on a rapid collision course with Earth, a group of astronauts discovered that they have accidentally returned to their space station with an alien slime creature that feeds on radiation and can reproduce rapidly from its own blood. Oh shit, that is really similar to the plot of the movie I'm working on right now.
Damn.
So I'm going to watch that and I'll get some inspiration.
Dude, I told you, I remember these old horror movies, man.
Sometimes those are the best ones. Like there's just something about them.
Well, it's like The Birds.
Love The Birds.
The Birds was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Very little blood.
Yeah.
Very little actual seeing somebody getting their eye pecked out.
With when it comes to blood, I really do like. I agree with an all or nothing game. You either go nuts with it or you do the whole sort of back away and be scary with it thing. Mm-hmm. In the middle, you don't get the benefit of either. But
we ain't even talking about you. We're talking about everybody else now.
So we're just here to chat, man. I'm going to talk about me to have fun. People want to know about the green slime.
Oh, dude.
I would want to know about the green slime.
It was awesome.
But anyway.
I mean, as a kid, you see these stuff. And then, of course, Elvira comes out. You know, I mean, the Mistress of the Dark.
Here's a B movie that stuck with me as a kid. I remember there were a few precursors in my life where it's obvious now that I was going to love these movies, despite being scared of the idea of them. Yeah. There are two big moments. One was I was watching TV in my parents' bedroom, and they'd put on some movie. You know, movies used to play on TV, and it had gone to the next movie, and it was on Sci-Fi Channel. And so Sci-Fi Channel has those shitty originals that they've been doing forever, and those shitty, they're delicious. They're so silly and so wild. And there was I was like, oh gosh, I was a kid. I don't remember how old I was. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. Yeah. And it was called Locusts, and it was just locusts, and it was just a bunch of locusts tearing up the town. There's like a plague, these clouds of CGI locusts just destroying. And it was like 2003 CGI. So they're chewing up these buildings and they're chewing up people. And I remember being a kid being like, wow, are locusts real? And I remember just having that same sort of like, holy shit reaction. And then my mom used to have movie nights, as a kid. And, she was like, oh, I grew up in this movie Gremlins and I loved it. And it's not scary. It's just a cute, fuzzy little kids movie. I mean, it was not a cute, fuzzy little kids movie. And I remember when they put the gremlin in the microwave and blow it up, all my other brothers scream, cry, hide their faces. And I'm laughing and clapping. And by the end of the movie, all the brothers are out of the room except for me and my mom. And she's like, so this isn't freaking you out? I was like, no, they put the gremlin in the microwave.
Well, Gremlins is technically a Christmas movie.
It is very much a Christmas movie.
I think it is.
I think it is. It's so funny when I hear, Die Hard's a Christmas movie. I'm like, it is and it isn't. I always say that Christmas movies are defined where Christmas is like the point of the movie. It's the theme. But in Gremlins, it's about gifts for Christmas and consumerism and all these things. I'm like, you can argue it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, instead of getting a hamster, you got a gremlin.
Yeah.
A mogwai.
A mogwai. And then it turns into a gremlin when you feed it after midnight. Man.
And then they come out with them stupid little things.
Yep.
With the batteries.
I never saw the second one. I heard the second one's even crazier.
The second Gremlins?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens in a high rise.
Yeah, I know that much. I just haven't seen it.
It's kookier.
I've heard they kind of almost went overboard. People love it or hate it.
Yeah, I mean, you see all the Gremlins. They're in the theater. They're all up and down. And I mean, there's of course you got the female one.
Yep.
And
she's
just going crazy, Yeah. But I mean, I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it. It was pretty funny. But the first one was the shit nits.
Classic.
I mean, it was just it.
Yeah. That's awesome. There's a movie that you might check out. I always recommend it to people. It's my favorite of the kind of bizarre 70s horror movies made for the drive-in that stands the test of time. So Ted Post, a filmmaker, after he directed the second Planet of the Apes movie, they tell him, all right, Ted, good work. You can go do whatever you want, you know.
Okay.
Thanks for doing that sequel for us. And so he says, I want to make this movie called The Baby. And it's about this social worker who finds a case of an adult baby. He's not aged beyond, he lives and the parents put him in a crib, and they've like busted out his kneecaps and crap so he can't crawl or whatever. And they cattle prod him anytime he tries to talk or walk to keep him a baby. And so she starts to suspect, like, I think he's a mentally capable adult, not disabled. And I think they're abusing him into staying like a baby.
Yeah.
And it is nuts. It's bonkers.
I have never seen it.
I saw it for the first time a couple years ago on Shudder. It just popped up. It's on Tubi as well for free.
Huh.
It's like almost Hitchcockian in its story structure, full of twists and turns, and it's upsetting and it's bizarre and it's a lot of fun. And there's a couple of twists toward the end that'll just blow your mind.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to. That'd be awesome.
Oh man, that's great.
So, what movie stood out the most in your mind that you did?
That I did?
That you did. What was the most fun, stood out, the whole 9 yards?
Oh, man. Okay, well, I've got reference right here.
There's more if you need them.
So the hardest movie to make, gosh, my favorite movie that I've made is my Bigfoot movie that I just made, the Bigfoot Trap. I had wanted to make that since Clownergeist. When I was working on Clownergeist, and I was like, man, I wish I could make something, go home and make a simpler movie for $7,000. You know, I'd come up with more or less this idea.
Okay,
and I'd written the script while I was on salary for that company right after COVID. The boss got sick. There was this sort of up in the air period, like, am I still working here, or is he sick and are they cutting back?
Yeah.
And so I wrote the script. He was ultimately too sick. I got let go. And I was like, okay, back to freelancing. Salary, nice while it lasted.
Yeah.
It lasted about a year. There's not a lot of salary positions as a filmmaker. But I found one, and I was like, I'm going to keep it. And from there, I took that script.
I think I'd have been taking him medicine and doing everything he needed.
Yeah. So he ultimately, and thankfully, he's better now, and he wants to do a movie again. So
Sweet.
That's great. But
Here's a contract.
yeah, I know. Well, literally, it's funny. I had written a horror movie for them that they really wanted to do. And he's like, I promise, give me a year to get better, because his lung collapsed. It was normally, yeah. And he's like, give me a year and a half to get better, and we'll do it. And sure enough, he still wants to do it. So we'll see if it happens. But anyway, while I was waiting for the verdict, I made the Bigfoot Trap. I wrote the Bigfoot Trap because like, okay, I've wanted to make this movie forever. I love Bigfoot culture. I think it's wild, and I have this idea that's more of a thriller, and I just want to. It's based on a real Bigfoot trap in Oregon that I've always been fascinated with. That I actually got to go visit over Christmas because my girlfriend is from Oregon.
That'd been cool.
So cool. It's been there since the 70s. But I was just, yeah, it turned out really well. And it was exactly what I was saying, where everything in that script, I'm like, I can pull that off. I can pull that off. I can pull that off. And the story meant something to me, and it was creative, but it was also thrilling. And there's Bigfoot in it, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I watched the trailer, man. I mean, it in the trailer, it gave a hint of a little bit of comedic relief in a couple of parts.
Yeah, it's very ironic. The whole movie is very ironic, constantly, right? It's sort of that, like, oh my God, of course. Oh my God, of course. Oh my God, of course. Where just things are going really wrong. It's funny. I kind of thought the movie would be funnier, and then I finished it, and I've screened it for people who kind of thought the same thing from the trailer, and like, dude, this movie's bleak. And I was like, I guess it is bleak. I didn't mean for it to be bleak, but it came out bleak because originally I wanted it to have that sense of darkly comedic irony. But by the time the movie got done, that wasn't there anymore, and it wasn't what the movie needed. But it's still there in the trailer. But I'm happiest with that, and we have, we've had success with it, and a major streamer has, we're talking,
right,
and there are good things happening with it. So I think that's the movie I'm happiest with. The other two movies I think about when I think about movies I'm most proud of are probably Painted in Blood, just because it's another movie where I was able to pull off everything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we got to shoot in this amazing art museum. And then I love building sets. So on the Bigfoot Trap, I got to build a replica of the trap in Oregon.
Right.
And then I built a replica of one of the art galleries in that art museum so I could make a mess in there.
Yeah.
And it's about this security guard, wannabe painter. He takes a job as a security guard at an art museum, guarding this one painting that's more valuable than their stuff they normally have. But the figure in the painting is crawling out of the painting every night, walking around the museum, and it starts talking to him, and it starts trying to convince him that great art comes from suffering, and so you need to do things like paint in your own blood. And he, sort of pushes him into becoming this tortured artist figure. That's a great example of we released in the U.S. and it did okay, but in the U.K. it came out on DVD. It got into the supermarkets and it did really well. And all the response I get from that movie is out of the U.K. And
that's what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of the stuff over there is just
never know. You just never know. Things like art and painting in art museums don't. That's more part of the culture over there. Mm-hmm. So they responded to it. American Hunt, I'm still really proud of. It's brutal and it's fun, and I'm proud of all my movies, but those three I think came out the best. The most difficult movie to make, Clowntergeist, was hard because it was my first, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I messed up a lot, and it was in LA, and it was issue after issue after issue.
Yeah,
but I didn't really count that because it was my first movie, and it was going to be hard no matter what it was. So then that takes it to American Hunt, right? We had to switch out some of our crew at one point because one of the members got sick and one had a family issue and they had to go back home and yada, yada, yada. And things were falling apart and no one was getting paid. So it was hard to keep people there sometimes. And it was hot. It was sweaty. I had lost a camera team because of the family emergency and yada, yada, yada. And it was just hot and it was sweaty and we had no resources on the land. We just shot at that land, at that barn. And it was miserable. But the Bigfoot trap was also difficult only because it kept raining. We had a 15-day shoot and we lost 3 days to rain in total. So in a lot of those were like, we shoot half the day and then the other half it's raining. Yeah. And I was working with bigger gear than normal, bigger cameras, bigger lights, because we had some extra money because it was such a small idea with a roomier budget. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of the roomiest budgets I've ever had. But yeah. The rain it really slowed us down, and we lost a lot of time and just trying to squeeze all of it in the 12 days that we had was really hard. But
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's a lot of work to do. I mean, rain always seems to take a little slow down on a lot of things.
It slows everything down.
Like right now, I'm gonna go make some rain.
Go make some rain. Yep, I saw that hand gesture.
All right.
We've made it rain, but yeah, we were talking about the most fun, the most difficult movies I've done. So yeah, Bigfoot was hard because of the rain. We lost a lot of shooting time, and we had to protect the gear. We had to protect the costume, the prosthetics.
Oh yeah.
And it was hot. It was really hot. And two, the footage would come in every day, and it was good. And I was like, oh shit, I'm actually making a good movie here. There was like pressure there.
Yeah.
Especially when we thought maybe we could sell it to a streamer or something like that.
Yeah. Now, are the prosthetics in the indie world? I mean, are they as time consuming as some of the big Hollywood stuff?
It depends on how you approach it, and it depends on how elaborate the prosthetics are. Like I mainly the things that I've done are pre-carved and made of silicone. So they'll do a sculpt, cast it in silicone, and then it's like a mask or an arm or something like that you can just put on. So for our Bigfoot costume, it was a gorilla mask made of silicone, hand sculpted. Then we hand punched all the hair in the head and the beard and things like that.
Yeah.
Then we had a suit, and then we had monkey arms, which we also punched hair in. And so, it only takes him 15 minutes to get suited up. And then we've got hand carved, feet made of latex.
Yeah.
That go over shoes. So something like that, it's like, okay, it only takes him, 10, 15 minutes to become Bigfoot. Yeah. Meanwhile, our clown, it's like, okay, we made his head taller, and that was a prosthetic, and you take the foam and, you stretch rubber on top of it, and then you paint it, and then that can take like 2 or 3 hours to put on. By the time you do the head and the forehead wrinkles and the eyes and the cheekbones and all the others and the hair piece that we did, and so that.
Well, the Bigfoot, did you have to find a tall guy, or did you just do it with camera angles?
With Bigfoot, we did a little bit of it with camera angles. I wanted a guy that was tall but not too tall, because I know that Bigfoot's normally 7 or 8 feet. But the whole thing with this is, in the movie, there's a lot of breakdown between, is it a guy in a costume, is it not a guy in a costume, whatever.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, our Bigfoot can't be too tall. So I looked a lot into where would you encounter, and thankfully it worked with the geography. Where would you encounter a shorter Sasquatch? Well, in the southeast, in Florida, in Carolina, in Georgia, that's where you'd find Sasquatches, especially female Sasquatches that are maybe only 6'5", 6'6". And so I'm like, okay, we'll take an actor who's like 6'2" and use forced perspective and camera tricks and things like that to make them seem a little bigger, depending on what's going on. But like I said, there's a lot of dichotomy. Like, is it a guy in a costume? Is it not? And then too, the movie mainly focuses on the trap itself and the breakdown between the two characters. Because, well, I don't want to spoil anything, and I know that I'll be doing a bunch of press for this movie here in the next couple of months, so I'll be sick of talking about it. So
yeah, but like I said, I watched the trailer and I was just like, it's cool. It's and
I'll send you a screener. It came out really well, and it's got some great twists and turns in it, and it's got some great performances. And I feel like the movies I'm most proud of tend to be the ones that are the most original. It's like, oh shit, I actually made something. And this is coming from a guy who directed the Octa Games, which was just I don't have to tell you what we were pulling from that. It's like I made that while I was on salary and I didn't have a choice of what I was making. We had a lot of fun though. It's funny. The most fun, I think, movie that I've ever made is probably the Octa Games, because we had this big, huge cast of 13 people. It's about brutal kids games. And, I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. That 3 minutes. Did we restart, or does this add on to the?
Oh, it adds on.
Okay. For a minute, I'm like, did we just lose everything? Oh,
no.
Okay. Sorry. I totally got sidetracked. Forgive me.
Are you trying to direct my show? Is that what you're trying to do?
I think I am. I remember one time when I did broadcast, I forgot to hit record on the button.
Oh, no. So I did that one time.
And so they did the whole newscast, and I was like, great, guys. It was high school newscast, so it's no consequence. And they're like, how'd it come out? I'm like, let's watch it. I was like,
Yeah.
But anyway.
I did screw up one time, and I was just getting used to this black magic board.
Yep.
And I literally hit record over here on the road. So this is recording all the audio. But I went over here and I forgot to hit that one little button.
Oh, no.
That would transfer the sound from the road to the black magic.
Yeah.
So I had the audio here and I had the video here. No audio on the video.
Oh, no.
And for somebody that does not know a good thing about editing, I had to go back in my memory banks from when I used to do, recording bands and stuff.
Sure.
And I literally had to piece it all together.
Yeah.
Now, the bad part about it was the video was just a tad bit faster in the frameage than the audio. So every 30 to 40 seconds,
resync it.
I had to resync all of it.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, 8 hours just to get it going.
I believe it. Man, what a pain.
But I was never so proud of myself.
Yeah.
Because that was on the show that I did, Women That Ride.
Yeah, which was a great show. I actually watched some of that too.
Yeah, and you can't tell it. And I was just like, look, I'm getting goosebumps just because I did it,
You did. Yeah. There's something amazing
wild.
about that. There's something amazing about that. I mean, that's still why editing my own movies is satisfying to me.
Mm-hmm.
As budgets grow, I imagine I'm going to want to hand more and more things off.
Yeah.
But I think I'll always be editing my movies because I just enjoy it and I enjoy that satisfaction. And I can sit there in the edit bay and just edit. And it works with my brain.
Yeah. Well, there's so many people that do podcasts and YouTube videos.
Yeah.
They send it off. Nobody does a whole lot of their own editing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I want to do this. I mean, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it sitting down, start to finish. Yeah. I've got my equipment and I'm kind of learning. So
it's good to know how to do it too. If you're going to hand it off, it's good to know what it is you're handing off and how to give those people's notes. So if you do reach a point where you want to hand it off, you're going to know how to talk to them because you've done it yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's what I was curious about on because you did so much, the writing, the directing, the editing, all the things that you do. I mean, you're kind of like a one person company.
I really am a one man band. I mean, that's part of the secret of how I make money at this,
Yeah.
is you just, like I said, the most expensive thing is the thing that you have to farm out. And really the secret to making money at this is really just, which is always, like I said, before the show, we were talking about how I like to talk about making money at this because it's something that I had struggled so long to do. And there's not many people out there talking about it. There's not many people talking about how much money you're making. There's not many people talking about how to make that money and then how to live off that money. And then even things like health insurance. I was like, how the hell am I supposed to figure that out?
Well, that's one of the questions I have for you. I mean, you've done all this. You've gotten your budgets.
Yep.
You've made the movies. You've done all this process. But how did you get the freaking money?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of people. I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me that.
Yeah.
How do these guys do it? How do they?
I always wanted to know too. And I would research and I would find a lot. So it's really interesting. And basically there's a breakdown. It's like, okay, the way you make money off of a movie is simple. You make the movie and then people pay to see the movie.
Right.
Okay. So you think, okay, well then I'll just self-distribute it, right? I'll put it out there using a platform that gets it on Amazon and Google Play and iTunes. And for every time someone pays $5 to rent it, I will get that money and I'll make my money back.
Right.
If you have a fan base, that's great. If you have a fan base and a group of people that really want to see your movies, great. That's how you make money at that. The problem is most of us don't have a fan base, right? It's very hard to have a fan base and you have to build a fan base over time. So you actually spend more of your time advertising your movie than you do actually making movies. And it was like, well, I want to make movies. I don't want to go into advertising. I want to go into making movies.
And when you specialize in horror, I mean, doesn't that make your fan base just a little bit smaller?
It makes it smaller, but it also makes it more, they're both pickier and easier. Like they're pickier because horror fans like certain things and don't like certain things. And there's a million different kinds of horror fans that want different things. But at the same time, once you have a fan in the horror community, they stick with you, ride or die.
Oh yeah. It's forever.
It's a community, which is what I like so much about it, which is why I never want to leave it all the way.
Right.
But building a fan base was never something I was as interested. I mean, I've always been interested in it, but it's never something like I felt like I was capable of doing. So, and I didn't want to spend a bunch of time promoting. It's like, if I'm going to sit down and have a conversation on a podcast with it like this, it's going to be because I want to do it and because I want to talk and because I like creativity and I like people with projects, not because, I feel the need. And I understand that there is a degree of promotion for everything you do, no matter what. You have to promote it, somewhat. But, so yeah, you could self-distribute it and get money off those rentals. But then it's like, okay, so let's say I make a movie and get it financed by somebody, right? Let's say I make a movie. Let's say I want to make a movie like Clowntergeist and I get $25,000 from somebody, right? I convince a lawyer or a dentist or a venture capitalist or whatever to put in $25,000. Right. Then they say, like, they're going to want some of their money back. They're going to want that money back. It's an investment. It's a business transaction. So you go to an investor and they say, okay, here's $25,000. We want $25,000 back plus 5% of everything or 10% of everything or 30% of everything.
Right.
Or all of everything. It just depends on your investor. So then how are you supposed to make money from that? Maybe a percentage on the back end. Maybe you pay yourself from the budget. Maybe the movie takes you, maybe it's $25,000 movie. It takes you 6 months. You need $2,000 a month, $12,000 out of a $25,000 budget, which is like half of it. But that's how you make a living at it. Yeah. If you don't feel like you're going to get points. The other way would be points. It's like, okay, let's say I financed the movie myself, right? Or like just Painted in Blood, I financed it myself. Clowntergeist, I had people finance it that didn't care about getting their money back.
Right.
So I sell that to a distribution company. They put it out and they have more connections than I could ever have. Yeah. Right? They get it on DirecTV. They get it on, the last movie I did was on like Verizon TV. I had no idea that was even a thing. But it generates income for them, I
didn't know it either.
Yeah, I didn't either. Apparently, they've got a place where you can rent movies. Who'd have thought? On your cell phone, I don't know. So,
it's all over now. It's the digital age, man. It is,
and you never know where you're going to be able to generate revenue, and that's why. And it's too. I just kept thinking, I want someone else to manage that because I would rather be making movies. Mm-hmm. And so then you think, okay, I've self-financed it, and since I self-financed it, I didn't pay myself from the budget. Why would I pay myself my own money? I'm just going to save money and live on that, and then. So what you do is you give it to a distribution company. The distribution company will say, we'll give you 70%. We'll take 30%. And that can work. The problem is they can screw you over really easily. You have to make sure to go with a good company, a transparent company. But what they're supposed to do is release your movie, split the money. The problem is what a lot of them do is they say, okay, we have spent $25,000 on marketing. So before you make a penny back, we have to make $25,000 on the movie for our marketing expenses. And I work in movie marketing. I do movie posters and movie trailers. I've worked in acquisitions. I've worked in sales. It's like, I know that marketing a movie at this level isn't going to cost you 25 grand. It's just not. But a lot of times they'll automatically max out that cap and then just take all the money.
Yeah, but I mean, you've kind of done a little bit more than some movie makers out there. It's like some of these guys, I feel like they've got an idea. They went to movie school.
Yep.
They kind of know what's going on, and they're just trying to get somebody to pitch an idea to, and get the money, so they can actually start getting everything going.
So it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah, and people are like, how do I do that? You know?
Yeah. So I have this conversation with people a lot, right? And because that's a lot of times that's what people, right? Because that's the other side of it, right? The other side of it is, I just want to make movies. I don't mind keeping a day job. I just want to make a movie every 1, 2, 3 years.
Right.
I just want to make movies. I'm passionate about movies. I'm excited about. For me, all I ever wanted to do was make movies. I wanted to drop my day job. I wanted to go full time. And a lot of people want to just get that movie made.
Yeah.
And that's where things get discouraging, I think.
Yeah.
Is because you, in terms of, gosh, where do you even start? Okay, so if I have a script and I've written it, and I'm like, dude, I want to make this. I don't care about making a living. I just want to make this movie.
Actually, let's don't even start at they've already got the script.
Yeah.
Let's start with
just got an idea.
I've got a real good idea for a movie.
Yeah. So if you've got a real good idea for a movie, what I would do, the first thing I would do is try your best to write that movie, or if you know somebody that writes movies and you want to work with them. But I would try to focus on getting it on the page, right? Because once it's on the page, then you have something that you can show people, right? It's not just an idea. It's like, we've got a script, we've got a treatment, we've got something that they can read and they go, oh yeah, this is going to be a badass movie, because you're going to have to convince people that it is indeed going to be a badass movie.
Yeah, and it's got to be written in some kind of format.
Yeah, it can be, if you can get a whole script done, that's awesome. But I have seen people raise money just on a treatment, which is like a 5-page document that breaks down the entire story.
Right.
Just something where someone could look at it and go, oh yeah, this is going to be a badass movie.
Yeah.
So you got an idea for a movie, great, start there. If you can get a full script done, great. If you can get just a treatment done, that's also good. And I would do this by downloading screenwriting. That's the thing. People get so picky about, don't even worry about formatting. Just write it. Just go into Microsoft Word and this character says this. You can format it later.
Yeah.
Right? There are screenwriting softwares that'll do the formatting for you, and they're easy to learn, easy to download. Things like Celtex, things like Trelby are both free.
There's even songwriting software out there now where you just plug in a couple of words and then it'll finish the daggone thing for you.
Which is wild. It's
crazy.
That's a thing in and of itself.
So, I mean, actually knowing that there's something you can do for writing a script too. I mean.
Yeah. Take all the help you can. You can even ask Chat GPT, the AI thing, to brainstorm some ideas for you, pick your favorite ones and go from there. But, just get it onto the paper in one way or another. Use screenwriting software to help you format it. There's free screenwriting software. If that overwhelms you, just type it up in Microsoft Word. It'll be good enough, right? But it looks more professional, and you're more likely to raise money because the whole thing is getting people to take you seriously. That's how you raise money to make a movie.
Yeah. So
if you can have a screenplay or an officially formatted treatment, and treatments, you just Google screenplay treatment formatting. It's just a basic format on how those things are usually delivered. Then once you have a script, one of two things will happen. Either you try and sell it on spec, right? And that's where you go to Hollywood and you try and get a writing agent and you try and sell the script to a studio, and the studio picks it up, and maybe they make it, maybe they don't. And more likely than not, it's not very likely to get sold. And if it does get sold, it's not likely to get made. And if you're like, no, I want to make this movie. I don't want to just write it. I want to see it made. It's like, okay, then you're going to want to go the independent route.
Right.
Because that way you can make sure that the movie gets made no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you've got this script or this treatment, and now you need X amount of dollars to make it. This is where the biggest mistake I see happens. I just went to the American film market where people pitch movies and they sell completed movies, and the biggest mistake is asking for too much money.
Yeah.
Right? Times have changed. It used to be in the 90s, you could get $1 million to make a movie.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. And because that's how much it cost. You needed film stock. You needed to play by all the union rules. The unions had a much more tighter grip on everything than they do now.
Well, they were still doing 35 millimeter, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that stuff's expensive.
It's very expensive. And then with editing it, you had to rent an edit bay. So you had to actually chop the film. And so you had to rent the edit bay, you had to get the film. And you couldn't shoot a movie on your own back then. You needed a camera team. You can't just have one guy that knows how to use the camera. You can't even do you. You need a guy that knows how to use the camera, buy the film stock, develop the film stock, have a team around you. It's like, yeah, so in the 90s, you could get $1 million. Now, you can't get $1 million because movies aren't worth $1 million anymore. Right? Indie movies. It used to be if you finished a movie, that was inherently an asset, right? It was like you could make money on a movie just because it existed.
Okay.
Because it was so hard to make a movie. It was so hard to get film, and it was so hard to, do all these things and get all these logistics in place. If you were Robert Rodriguez and you made El Mariachi, you were Steven Soderbergh, you made Sex, Lies, and Videotape, you were Peter Jackson, and you made Bad Taste, which is a movie you'd like if you haven't seen it.
I'll have to check it out.
It was a splatter movie, a New Zealand splatter movie.
Oh, cool.
It's wild. But he made that on very little money. And just because it existed, like a lot of those filmmakers made the movies for anywhere between 80 and 250 grand. And Quentin Tarantino made Reservoir Dogs for $1 million. There are a lot of those guys that made the movie for $1 million. It was an asset because it existed. Now not only are there so many movies, but you're competing against TikTok, you're competing against YouTube, you're competing against video games, you're competing against podcast. There's just not enough room, and it's no longer inherently an asset.
Yeah.
And so I see people ask for 1990s level money. I went to AFM and I heard some amazing pitches for some amazing movies, and they'll go, "We're seeking $5 million in investment."
Oh, crap.
And I'm like, no, you're seeking $50,000 in investment. It's like, that's what you should be seeking.
You misplaced the zero there.
You misplaced the zero. You put the comma in the wrong
Yeah,
place.
that's it.
And it's like, God, I feel so bad because it's like, I'm not trying to shoot your dreams down here. It's like, it's just without a movie star, it has to be worth $5 million. If you're going to ask for $5 million, it needs to be worth $5 million. How are things worth $5 million? Well, they have, Daniel Radcliffe in them from Harry Potter, and it appeals to that fan base. It's a fantasy horror movie, and it's got Daniel Radcliffe, and well, that's worth $5 million.
Okay.
But if you don't have a movie star, you're not going to be. And some people say, well, how do I get a movie star? That's a great question, because you could do that. And I see people do that. They go, no. I don't want to do the micro budget thing. I don't want to do the no budget thing. I want to make this movie. I want to make it every detail as high quality as possible. Then what you're going to do is you're going to save up $5,000 to $15,000, probably $5,000, and get a casting agent or a casting director.
Okay.
And what that casting director will do is they'll take your script and they'll try and get an actor attached to it, right? And if you can get a big actor attached to it, I've got Jean-Claude Van Damme. I just had a buddy who directed a movie with him in it. He got him attached. Jean-Claude Van Damme liked the script, and so then you can go to financiers, investors, which can be anybody in the film. I mean, it's like, who are these investors? That's what I was wondering. Who the hell are these investors?
Yeah.
Literally, I know a guy. I produced a movie. I won't say which one. I didn't direct it. I produced it, but a buddy of mine directed it, and he got the money from literally a bored rich guy. He was in the UK and he was bored and he had a bunch of money, and he's like, I'll put 25 grand into a movie. Well, why not?
Sweet.
It's like, that's your investor, a bored rich guy? It's like, yeah. And he got financing from a group of lawyers one time. Sometimes it's dentists. Sometimes it's, you go to Walmart, you look at the DVD, you pick up, you see Grindstone Entertainment, or you see, whatever company. Sometimes those companies are financing movies. And if you go to them and you say, hey, I've got this script and I hired a casting director and I attached Jean-Claude Van Damme to it, we're looking for money. Well, now all of a sudden you've got something of value. But I see people spend years in this process.
Yeah.
Years in this process. And two, there are companies now that determine the value of a movie star. So they'll look at a movie star like, I don't know, let's take Lori Loughlin from Full House, right?
Okay.
She's got a certain value, right? In a horror movie, she's not going to be very valuable. The horror community is like, they're not chomping at the bit to see Lori Loughlin, right? But if you're doing like a Lifetime romance Christmas movie, well, now she makes that very valuable. That's that audience, you know? And so there are companies that evaluate the sort of valuability of a movie star.
Marketability.
The marketability. That's what I'm looking for. The marketability of a movie star. So now, so you've got a script, you get a casting director, they attach talent. That talent makes your script more valuable. And so now you can try and get it financed by either the companies that you see on the back of these DVDs or random rich people. Where do you find random rich people? Some people are really good at that. I'm not. That's why I don't play that game. I don't know where random rich people are hiding.
What you do, just walk up to somebody with a Ferrari and go, hey, you want to make a movie?
Literally, I know a guy that do that. They just approach guys that look rich and they're like, you ever gotten to movies? It's like, what? Like the guy that financed one of my movies, it was the studio financed it, but the studio got the financing by approaching some real estate guy who loved movies. So
wow.
People that are good at that are good at that. And you know, like if I'm talking right now, you're like, and if you're thinking I could do that, then that's what you should do because you got that thing, you should do it. But
and go ahead and put producer right there next to your name.
Exactly. And it, so yeah, but rewind back to your script, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, let's say if you say, I do want to get caught up in that. I don't mind playing that game. Great. That's where I'm not as able to give you advice because it's not a game that I've had as much of a desire to play or much of an ability to play. So what I always tell people now is it's like, okay, you got a great idea, right? Find a writer you like, collaborate with them, get the thing written, right? And you can find them online. You can find them at film festivals. You can find them through friends and family. You can look at other indie movies and contact the writer. I get contacted by people all the time wanting to collaborate on.
I mean, yeah, you can just get online and just research writers. I mean,
that was how I got involved in Death Ranch with my buddy Charlie. I produced it and shot it, and he directed it, and we got along. I hit him up online. We should do a project together. I like your movies.
Sweet.
And we did it. So that's what I would encourage somebody to do is write the script, and then find a way to get 50 grand, 20 grand. And 20 grand, that's a feasible amount. And that's where it's like, okay, bug everybody you ever worked for, bug your family, bug the guy that lives in that really nice house, just, and save up some money and scrape it together. But you're thinking 50 grand, that's a lot. It's like, reel it back, man. 5 grand. It's like, you can, if it's your first movie, people are going to want to do you favors. I ran out of favors. I'm 10 movies in. So it's like, I'm out of favors.
You know what you're doing. You don't need us.
But I'm out of favors. But at the beginning of my career, I was asking everybody for favors. Can I shoot here? Will you be in my movie? Things like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like on your first couple of movies, people are going to be willing to do you favors. It's a collaborative art form. And
some people just like if you needed a house to shoot at.
Yeah.
Sure, come on. Yeah. And they just like the point of, hey, my house was in this movie.
Exactly. and you'll be playing a lot on that. And so I always just encourage people, get whatever money you can get. That could be $5,000. It could be $1,000. Mm-hmm. The cheapest movie I ever made was for $5,000.
My mom actually has a friend. Remember the movie Green Mile?
Yeah.
Remember the old vehicles in there?
Yeah.
Her friend owned one of those old vehicles.
Really? Did she rent it out to the...
She rented to the studio.
Yep.
And she still got that vehicle.
That's awesome.
At last I heard, she had thought about putting it up for sale. And I'm like, you need to get certificate of authenticity. That this car was in the movie.
Yeah.
That way, I mean, you're going to up the value of that vehicle.
Oh, quite
so
a bit.
I understand value. The actor attachment.
Yeah, brings the value.
Brings the value up.
But what's also great is that a good movie also has value. And this is something that I've learned, especially with my Bigfoot movie has no stars, my Bigfoot movie, and yet it's doing really well. For the first time, it's doing really well because it's good.
Yeah.
And it's like people want good movies, and you're not going to get rich off a good movie, but you might be able to make a living off it.
Yeah.
And so make your movie as best you can. And it's not going to be very good the first time you do it, but just try your best. Find people that do know what they're doing, bring them on. I know some people, I get so jealous where their first movie kicks ass because they found some people that knew what they were doing and were willing to help. It's like, damn,
Luck of the draw.
Look at the draw. Look at the draw, and don't let it discourage you. Just go ahead and make your movie as best you can. And the most important thing is that it's got heart and that you know the basic technical elements. Like this is a great example. You wanted to start a podcast. You've learned the basic technical elements just by researching. Then it's just about putting on a good show.
Yeah, and a lot of it was, because from my background of doing lights and sound all over Nashville, I knew about the audio aspect of it. The only thing I had problems with was the video part.
Yeah.
And dude, I researched, I did everything I could.
Yeah.
Never doing editing software before.
Yeah.
I'm messing with that stuff. And I just hope at the end of the day, somebody recognizes that this guy didn't know crap.
Yeah.
And he's actually doing something that's got a pretty good video quality.
Yeah, a very good production value. And so it's like that's what and also you touched on something critical, which is taking what you have and what you know and applying that first and foremost.
Yeah.
You knew sound. That was taken care of. You knew guys at the music shop to get you cheap mics.
Yeah.
That you had. It's like take advantage of what you have. You think, I've got a car and I've got a buddy that does music and I've got some guitars or whatever. It's like, great. That's now what your movie is. It's going to revolve heavily around music and it's going to have guitars in it and it's going to take place in your car in your apartment. And you can make something cool out of that. Like you could make some punk rock zombie movie. You could make some struggling musician drama, whatever you want to make.
Actually, what comes to mind is there's a guitar hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
And the guy's girlfriend takes the guitar off the wall and then she turns it up to play it and blood just oozes out of it.
Yeah. It's like what if she plays something and that summons evil spirit? It's like, but
that would be weird.
What I'm talking about. You just look around you and you think like, okay, so the guitar bleeds. Now what? The story will show itself to you. It's like, okay, I've got a bleeding guitar and you play an evil melody. And what does that do? And the story will reveal itself to you. Well, zombies, maybe they feel overdone. Maybe instead it converts the person who hears the melody into some crazed, rabid music.
Yeah, who
monster.
knows?
It's who knows? So the story will show itself to you. Do your best, be creative. Spend $5,000, $10,000, whatever you got, whatever you can raise, make that movie. And then when you sell it, try to make sure it's a good, either make sure you're getting paid up front, right? With what's called a minimum guarantee, which is they give you like, okay, we'll give you $15,000. And then once we make $15,000 back, then we'll split it.
Yeah.
That protects you from shadier companies that like you can tell based on what other people have said about them or you've contacted other filmmakers and I haven't gotten paid in 6 months or I haven't got paid in a year. It's like, okay, then they're going to be paying me up front.
Yeah.
And then they can just keep the money. They just that. And I do, I know people that do that. They make cheap movies and they sell it and they're like, I know that I'm not getting any royalties off you. So pay me up front. And then the contract says, just keep it.
Yeah. But the royalties won't stay forever.
They won't. No.
And I think a lot of people make that mistake.
They do. I made that mistake.
Because, it's, it's like the podcasting stuff and everything. You can buy a lot of cheap gear that people have gotten into it. They didn't get rich quick.
Yeah.
And they dumped it.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing it just because I enjoy this shit.
That's the most important part, I think. Because like, the goal for me was never money. The goal for me was to spend as much of my time making movies as possible.
Yeah, because at 8 years old, man, it's like the bug hit you.
It is. The bug just hits you, and you do it. And so the only reason I became so interested in the money side of it was like, okay, the better I understand this, the more time I could spend making movies.
Oh yeah.
And so now I'm booked out for a year and a half, doing nothing but making movies. And it took me a long time to get there, but now I'm like, I have a knowledge of this money stuff. I understand it. And that allows me to spend all of my time. Mm-hmm. I've spent the past 2 weeks building a spaceship in my parents' garage. That's how I want to live my life. I love it. I feel so lucky to be able to do that.
Well, yeah. You get to keep the spaceship, right?
You know what's cool is the lumber from that spaceship was this is another thing too that's cool about making a bunch of movies is you accrue assets. And so so far the ship has cost $300 for drywall. Because all the lumber was from previous sets. So
sweet.
I just hold on to this lumber. I put it in my parents' crawl space or whatever. wherever I can put, because I'm in an apartment. So I keep whatever I can in my apartment, but I can't keep lumber in there. But I can keep lumber in my parents' crawl space or whatever. So, you know, just whatever you got. It's like, I'm lucky. I got my parents. They got a garage and they don't care if I build stuff in it. And they got a crawl space and they don't mind if I put wood in it. And they've got some land, you know, they don't mind if I shoot on it. But everybody's got different assets. I know a guy whose asset is he's like, my mom's boyfriend is really rich. I think I can get 10 grand out of him. And sure enough,
oh God,
it's like everybody has an asset somewhere. It's like maybe your dad is a dentist and he'll let you shoot some weird scene in the dentist's office. I've always wanted to shoot in a place like that, but I don't have that resource. And so it's like, you know,
well, you go to the dentist, right?
Yeah, you could ask them. But if it's like, if your dad's a dentist or your brother's, it's like you're way more likely to have that resource. It's just, I would start with the resources that you have, even if it's your car. One of my resources was I had a piece of shit car and it was on its last leg. And I was like, okay, I need to get a new car. But then once I did, it was like, you going to sell your old one? And I'm like, it's got 250,000 miles on it. Like it's, you know, it's an old car. And I thought, this is an asset now. I can shoot a movie in this, or I can shoot a movie around it. My movie Ouija Craft takes place in and around this car, and then we beat the shit out of the car. We wreck the car, we break the windshield.
You could blow it up. You could do anything you wanted to.
Blow it up, flip it upside down, and shoot a little apocalypse scene, whatever you want. It's like your resources are what you make them. They really, really are. They really, really are.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. So, but yeah. So there's so much more to it, but really, the one thing I tell myself over and over, and the one mantra that has just kept me going, is just keep making movies. Don't get sidetracked. And if you don't want to do a billion movies, don't worry. What it really is saying is just stay creative. Right?
Yeah.
Just keep moving on that project. Keep inching forward every day. And if you're running in circles, find a different way to move forward. And if you just keep pushing, that movie will exist and you will finish it. And it may come out awesome. It may not come out awesome. But the important thing is too, so many people will be like, I don't want to make a bad movie. I'm like, of course, nobody wants to make a bad movie, but take it from somebody who's made several bad movies on accident. It's like the important thing is that you enjoy doing it. And it's that you like the culture of it and you like working with the actors and things like that. You know, I think that's incredibly, incredibly important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, dude, it's like the old Japanese movies with Godzilla, Mothra, all of those. Those guys did it. And they created something. And it's something that's still there today.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big following around a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah.
So no matter what, even if you think it's just totally crap.
Yeah.
Could be a legacy.
It also, you know, what's funny is too, I always hesitate to judge any of my movies before time has passed. I am satisfied with Bigfoot, but I don't think I'll actually know if it's any good. Like, I feel like it's good because people are responding well to it, but you'll never really know until time passes. And this happened with American Hunt. When I made American Hunt and I finished it, I almost didn't want to put my name on it because the production was so hard and, you know, it was so arduous. And I'd spent so much time with the movie. I thought, this movie is a piece of shit. I hate it. I don't want to, you know, I'm not happy with it. And then like 4 or 5 years passed. People were enjoying the movie. I was getting messages about it online.
I liked the trailer.
Well, I sat down and I watched it and I was like, why did I hate this?
Yeah.
This is good. This is a good little movie. And then the flip side has happened. I've made movies where I finish them like, this thing's awesome. I really feel like I feel like it came together well and I'm feeling good about it. And I watch it a couple years later. I'm like, this actually doesn't really work. You know?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to enjoy it, because even if you think you've made a bad movie, you might have made a good movie. If you feel like you made a good movie, you might have made a bad movie. It's like, do it, show it, find people that like it, be glad that they liked it, and move on.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, that's one of the big things with me. I mean, honestly, when I'm in editing and I'm having to watch it and I add my little intro and all this other stuff, and I'm watching it and I'm like, man, this sucked.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to put this out there.
Every time.
But I put it out there anyway. And the one thing that keeps ringing in my head on all of it is something that a lot of people have told me over the years. David, you are your worst critic.
Yeah, it's true.
I feel that rings true for a lot of people.
There are two things that come to mind when you say that. Is one, there's a Alien 3, right? Mm-hmm. Alien 3 was directed by the great David Fincher. It was his first movie. David Fincher went on to direct Seven and Fight Club and Gone Girl and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and all these incredible movies. He directed Alien 3. Alien 3 was not received well. And he's on record many times saying, believe me, nobody hates Alien 3 more than I do.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I made it. And it's just... But I think, and the second thing that it makes me think of is it's so important to feel that, because if you finish something and you look at it and you're like, this is perfect, I wouldn't change a frame of it. You'll never improve.
Yeah.
Ever. How are you supposed to improve from perceived perfect? You know? And so I do know some filmmakers where they'll finish a movie and they'll be like, I wouldn't change a frame of this one. It's genius. Or even what's worse is a movie from like 5 years ago that they made. And they're like, I think it's amazing. I wouldn't change a frame of it. I'm like, so you mean to tell me that you achieved perfection 5 years ago and you just haven't done anything better than that? It's like you should, being hard on yourself, as yucky as it feels, it's a good thing. It means that you care. It means that you want to improve. And so it's important to have a relationship with that feeling.
Yeah, because I mean, dude, it impressed me when you was telling me about you was watching some of my shows, stuff like that, and you noticed different things on the set.
Yeah.
That I was adding stuff. I was doing this. I was doing that. Yeah. And I was like, I didn't think nobody would notice.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Yeah. That's what's cool, man. Once it's done, once a movie is done, you give it to the world, and then it's up to them what they want to do with it. You know?
I mean, it's awesome.
It is awesome. And so that's why, too, when I've made some movies that, especially the mockbusters that I've done, which the mockbusters, I think, are still a great way to get started for a young filmmaker. If they're like, no, I want to do what you're doing, Aaron. I want to make a bunch of movies and I want to make money at it. Mockbusters are a great way to get started because those have value because they're ripping off something else. It's not much value, but it's value. And it sells overseas and people click on it. And so there's still some value. And so it's a great way to learn how to make movies on someone else's dime. Because I didn't have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to drop movie over and over and over.
Yeah, but you can mock somebody else's stuff.
Well, and, it allowed me to make a movie of value for a studio. So someone else was willing to finance a movie for me if it ripped off another movie. And two, I'm like, I've seen the numbers on these mockbusters. Believe me, we're not hurting these movies. These things barely make money, but they make money and enough money for you to learn. And so, I don't know. A lot of people feel differently about it, but for me, it's been my film school. It's taught me so much. And some of my best memories are working on these mockbusters. It's like, hey man, it's like I'm making movies and I'm not staying in them forever,
Yeah, once you hit that wall, and you've done all you can do, you can always go teach at film school.
Yeah. There you have it. Oh my God.
You started that.
I did. No, I had a flashback to, it's funny, when you said that, I had a flashback to a teacher named Gary. And Gary, we sat down and watched Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, which is a great movie. And one thing I liked in particular is what Spike Lee did is he takes these wide lenses, which sort of, it's almost like a fisheye lens, but less extreme.
Right.
He shoves it in the actors' faces at a Dutch angle. It's confrontational, it's in your face, and it's odd looking. And I loved it. I loved that stuck out to me when I watched the movie.
Yeah.
And these hot reds in the production design and in the camera work. I'm like, the movie's making me sweaty. The movie's confrontational. I like the visual style. That's what I gravitated to. Now, obviously the movie is extremely political and it's about race, but for whatever reason, I was like, I am all on this visual style.
Oh, yeah.
And so we finished the movie, and my teacher goes, okay, what did we like about that movie? What did we think? And so I raised my hand. I'm like, I love the confrontational camera work. I love how it feels like a hot summer day in New York. And he goes, well, that's not really what we like about this movie. What we like about the movie is the racial context. And I was like, hold on. We like whatever we want to like about a movie. It's a movie. I can respond to whatever I want to respond to. It's like...
Yeah, because when I'm watching a movie, I'm not really... I don't care what color the characters are and everything else. I want to see how it all comes together.
Sure. Well, and everybody's going to respond to... If you are responding to the political commentary, that's awesome. It's like, it's there for a reason. But like, I just remember that embodies so much of film school. It's like this failed filmmaker being like, that's not what we like about this movie. And I was like, what? Because he would say the same thing, too, about Citizen Kane or anything else that didn't even have political subtext. It's just, gosh, I could always go teach at film school and I could tell people what they should and shouldn't like. But it goes back to what we were saying about once you finish something, you give it to the audience. And it's like, hey man, however they want to respond to it is however they want to respond to it. And I've made some of these mockbusters, and if people want to laugh at it, then great, they can laugh at it. As long as they're having a good time, man. That's my goal, is people have a good time. Now, obviously I don't want them to, but I mean, that's better than boring them, right?
Oh yeah.
No, I don't think I've made anything that bad. It's so funny. I'm so hard on myself, even outwardly. I'm like, these suck. And so often I'll talk like that, and people go back and they'll watch it and be like, actually, I enjoyed that. You're so hard on yourself. I'm like, well, I think we should be hard on ourselves.
Well, it's like when they made God, The Warriors.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen the one.
You haven't seen The Warriors?
No.
Dude.
Isn't it directed by Sam Peckinpah?
I don't know.
Let's look it up.
See, I'm weird. I didn't, I don't know directors and stuff like you do.
No, you don't have to. It makes sense why I do it,
I mean, it's just, but when The Warriors came out, one of the biggest selling points that made a lot of people want to go see that movie was somebody broke the news that the Warriors movie was causing fights in the theater.
Yeah.
So now everybody wants to go to the theater to see the fights.
I mean, you never know. You're at the mercy of the public. It's directed by Walter Hill, for those that care. Walter Hill.
Yeah.
There's something too. I wanted to recommend some movies for you, because you don't meet many people that can appreciate the fine things that a low budget 80s or 70s horror movie has to offer.
Oh yeah. I mean,
think they have so many riches to offer. And
well, I mean, dude, I was raised up on B horror movies.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, the B horror movie back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, these were really, really, really low budget.
But they were usually the most creative.
Yeah, these guys put their heart and soul in these movies, man.
They did. And they call them B movies because you'd go to the drive-in and the A movie was like Star Wars or Jaws or something big. And the B movie, because they, drive-ins are in competition. So they go, oh, 2 movies for the price of 1.
There you go.
You had to pay to rent these reels. So they we can't rent, Jaws and The Exorcist. They're being expensive. So it's like, we'll just rent some cheapo, low-budget movie. And so the A movie would play Jaws, and the B movie would play. That might be Grizzly. If you haven't seen Grizzly, that's a...
Grizzly scared the shit out of me.
Grizzly is a great one.
Yeah, but see, I'm raised up. We're going hunting. We're going deer hunting. Okay? I'm out in the woods.
And
okay?
so that's a little real.
Before the movie came out, I was like, I'd sit in the tree stand and I'd be like, and okay, I'm guilty. Every now and then I doze off.
Sure.
Grizzly came out.
It's a waiting game.
Grizzly came out, and I'm like, I'm locked. I'm loaded. I'm just like, where in the hell is that freaking bear?
Well, we don't have grizzlies in Tennessee, but we do have black bears.
We do have black bears. And we've also got my father was like the biggest hero of my whole life.
Yeah.
But he had a sense of humor that was wickedly evil.
Great.
Dude. And I'm sitting in a tree stand one time.
Yeah.
And he comes up behind me, and I didn't see him. I didn't hear him. I mean, he's sneaky little sucker. And he comes up behind me, and he hollers, "Bear!" And he pops off a round out of the rifle. And I'm like, I'm losing it. It scared the shit out of me.
The night my mom saw The Exorcist, my uncle, and again, my grandma was like, all right, sit in the back seat. Don't look. Well, my mom looked. And what freaked her out the most was the scene where Linda Blair's flopping on the bed. She's like, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.
And then she leans back and Satan's fully possessed her. So my mom's brother, my uncle, thought it would be funny in the middle of the night to start flopping on the bed. Going, Tanya, help me. Scared the shit out of my mom. But I want to recommend a few movies to you.
All
right. So let's see. I'm just looking at what I've watched recently. Oh, okay. Here's one. Christmas Evil. Have you seen that one? 1980?
No, I have not.
That's a good one. It's about this guy that's obsessed with Santa Claus, but is traumatized after seeing his mother and Santa Claus make sweet love, not knowing that Santa Claus was his father.
There's a lot of blues songs about that.
But Christmas Evil from 1980. Anyway, he decides to, as an adult, take being Santa into his own hands as a toy factory manager. And so he decides he's going to give presents to the good children and kill the naughty adults.
Okay.
And it's like someone saw Taxi Driver and was like, this needs Santa Claus. Because it's not even a crazy, it's like this gritty, sad, like movie about a killer Santa. And so I watch it, I'm like, I love this. I love this texture. I love this vibe. It's so different from other movies.
Well, see, I didn't think I would like Bad Santa.
Oh, I haven't seen that one with Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah, and it's actually good.
A lot of people like that one. I need to see it.
And it's hilarious. It's like situations he gets into without even, he's trying not to.
Yeah.
But he's getting in these situations that just totally screw him.
Yeah.
It's like karma's permanently on his back.
I love off-book Christmas movies like that, so I need to see that. Another one I think you'd like, it's actually from a friend of mine. He directed it, and it's my favorite movie of his. He did a movie called Winter Skin, and that one's directed from a friend of mine. And as far as modern indie B horror goes, really good stuff, Winter Skin.
Yeah.
It's like Misery. It's two people locked in a cabin, but there's so many twists and turns, and I don't want to give a thing away.
Yeah.
And then what else? I'll throw one or two more at you. The Baby, like I said, is great.
Yeah, I was going to say you recommended The Baby earlier.
Baby. What else do we got here? Let's see if I can find one more. I already talked about them. Have you? Yeah, this one's really popular. Have you seen The Stepfather from '87?
No.
That's one. That right there. That's like the best one. It's about this stepfather. And what he does is he goes from, he's a killer, and he goes from family to family, and he's obsessed with the perfect family unit.
Okay.
And a perfect, clean, happy family. And so he marries divorced women with children and tries to make them into the perfect whole family that he never had. And when inevitably families get messy, he decides he's just going to kill the whole family, change his name, and start over. And and so the stepfather follows the family that ultimately figures out what he's up to.
Okay. I probably would think that there's probably a lot of people out there living that life.
There might be. I know, talk about tapping into real fears. The Stepfather is just, it's wild though. It's a good movie.
Well, see, that's something I always liked though, was that's why Jaws and Grizzly scared the living crap out of me.
Yeah.
Because it was something that could really happen.
Yeah.
And then there was one, what was that name of the movie? It's where the roommates and the girl starts mimicking her and becoming her.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of it.
Is it newer or older?
It's older.
Because there's a newer one that, but I know what you're talking about. Because I know there's a new one called The Roommate, and I think they might be remaking that.
It's possible. I don't know. I think it was like 80. No, it was 2000. Around in 2000.
Huh. That's a fun era, actually. There's a movie called Rest Stop. It scared me in the same way. It's about just the
Wasn't that Kurt Russell in that?
In Rest Stop? No, that was just a B movie.
Oh, was it a B movie?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Like 2003. But anyway, there's so much good shit out there. There's so much. I loved, like, it's interesting. So they were talking about AI, right? And they were talking about the AI data sets. So you've seen these AI that can generate images, right?
Right.
And how they work is you feed it billions of images, right? You have a database of billions of images that it can pull from, and then it takes elements from those, combines them into something new. And they said with AI, the big thing is crap in, crap out. So if you have crap images and crap data, it's going to give you crap images out.
Yeah.
So as an artist, I think the same thing applies. If you watch garbage, you will make garbage. And now I love watching garbage, but good garbage.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a good movie. We call it garbage affectionately, but I actually think some of these movies have really sharp commentary and are really interesting. And so I really, and they say that is the same thing about if you watch what everybody else is watching, you're going to make what everybody else is making. And so I love going on the hunt for just old or weird or new and weird or underseen movies from all over the world. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned too, is there's some crazy shit that's just not in English, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, hell, the big thing now is what is it they call it? Bollywood.
Oh yeah.
The India stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of stuff coming out of there.
A lot of stuff. There's even stuff. I just saw this movie called Who Killed Captain Alex, which it's a really bad movie, but it makes sense as to why it was made in Nigeria. In Nigeria, they have Nollywood, and they make hundreds of movies. And what was so cool about Who Killed Captain Alex is it was kind of early on in the Nollywood movement. And it was just this guy in Africa who sourced computer parts from things that came in and, donations and things like that. He got a camera and he built a computer and he just started making movies in his village, and they are bonkers. They are bonkers. He's got these crazy green screen scenes of like people jumping out of planes and driving planes into these African villages. And it's these crazy, funny, wild movies from this part of the world that seem so you're not connected with it because they're not online and they're not as plugged in as the rest of the world. So I love looking for stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. So, well, dude, it's been a long time.
Before we wrap up.
Oh, wait a minute. You got one more?
One more thing.
One more thing?
So, like I said, I've noticed that you've been collecting trinkets and everything, and I noticed that the set is growing, and I have a very small pocket-sized gift as a way to say thank you for having me on the show. So while I made the Bigfoot trap, I collected more Bigfoot trinkets than I could ever know what to do with. And so I don't have room for all of them in my life. And so I've got a meditating Bigfoot for you.
Oh, and dude.
He can go anywhere.
Yeah, set it right there.
And and so then he can be a part of your little ecosystem. There he is.
Check him out.
So that was just a way to say thank you for chatting with me for a couple hours.
Not a problem. Dude, it's been a pleasure,
It's
man.
been so much fun, man.
I love the hell out of it. You can come back anytime you want to.
I'd love to, man. Next time I have something clear to promote, I'll come out and promote it and talk
Hell
about it in
yeah,
detail.
come on.
So.
All right, y'all, we're going to get out of here.
Right on, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one, y'all.